Let me start this off.
Why don't you get your boy?
Dang, I'm on, man.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah, all right. Peace, family. You're tuning into the Pro-Black Perspective on KWAZ Radio. And today we're going to do some deep reading of the Wretched of the Earth. Make sure you check out other podcasts on the KWAZ network, such as the Harsh Reality Podcast, the Bitter Medicine Podcast, and of course, check out Revolutionary Matron. But now we're going to jump right into it. This is one of those books that I was supposed to read maybe a decade ago and I haven't. And I tried to read it to, my 5-year-old, but it's a little too deep for him. So I'm gonna read it to y'all and hopefully it gets where it's supposed to be. Now, this is pretty interesting. I'm going to start off with the first sentence because the first sentence is actually really critical here. So it says national liberation, national reawakening, restoration of the nation to the people or commonwealth, whatever the name used, whatever the latest expression, decolonization is always a violent event. And I want you to understand this. Like, I think this is what I want people to understand from even the first sentence. It's the fact that, because it's something that I tell people all the time, but nationalism, that is national liberation, national reawakening, restoration of the nation, that is decolonization. You see? So Franz Fanon starts off, first sentence of any book, really. First sentence is always usually very critical, right? Because the author makes a purposeful intention to draw you in and if nothing else, inform you, right? And the first sentence is that national liberation and decolonization are the same thing, So when you encounter quote unquote black nationalists, African nationalists, so on and so forth, and even when you say, hey, African nationalists and socialists are two different sides of the same, are two different antagonizing forces. The reality is that socialism, nationalism, all these isms, in a sense, what black liberation or what you consider black liberation, whatever you say, the reality is that the objective of decolonization or quote unquote liberation or whatever is nationalism. So when you encounter see me, I'm by the way, I didn't tell you guys, I'm Onitaset Kumat, but the Pan-African Nationalist. Yeah, this Machiavelli's here. But the basis is that when we talk about Pan-African nationalism, what we're talking about is that decolonization. And we have to recognize and realize that the whole purpose of forming a nation or of acting towards getting a nation is this decolonization. It's the most critical stage that we have as a people. But we're going to continue. And today I'm just going to try to read 12 pages. You see from page 1 to 12. And hopefully I'll try to do this every day for August. And we'll just say this is Black August 2021, right? But all right, so decolonization is always a violent event. And of course, violence is, you can see the name of the chapter on violence. Violence is the main way to decolonize. Well, and this is, and here's the thing I wanted to point out too, that he's going to point out a little bit, like maybe on page 3, how there's a difference between a capitalist country and a colony. And the reason why is because decolonization could happen in 2 different ways. I'm going to tell you. It's either you kill the colonizer or you move from the colonizer, right? And the only difference is that when you're on your own indigenous land, you don't have a really option to move. So you have to kill the colonizer, right? And there's a lot of colonies still in Africa, just still FYI, right? But let's keep going.
We're talking about kill. We're talking physical violence or other ways of being.
That's the only, because the issue is, so yes, physical violence is the only way to decolonize, or you gotta move. You gotta strategically move away. But yeah, physical violence is going to be this is what Franz Fanon is saying, right? We preface that. No, I'm joking. But realistically speaking, it's like if somebody comes into your home, right? Obviously you can like kick them out of your house, but if you can't kick them out of your house, you have to be like, if they're not going to listen to you saying, hey, get out, I don't want you here, right? You have to be violent with them. You could move from your house. That sounds dumb, but if you have to exert some sort of force. If you do not exert your own physical, like you're neglecting one of the most potent tools in the human arsenal. You know, words are really impactful. You know, words can have an effect. You could definitely appeal to somebody to, leave your house. But it like but if you could do that, then sure, go ahead and do that. You know? But if that doesn't work, then you can't just say, well, I tried everything, because you didn't. You know? So yeah, it's gonna be physical violence. But yeah, that's how you would decolonize. Because colonization is basically somebody coming into your house and setting up shop and redoing everything there, and on top of that, subordinating you. You know, so it's not so much like, oh, you both came together and you have some sort of agreement. Because later on, he's going to use the word cohabitation. Because in fact, I think a lot of people could relate to this. You know, like sometimes you might, like a woman might, or if you're a man, a woman might move into your home, right? And she might actually start, telling you what to do, how to do it, so on and so forth. And you could tolerate it to a point, right? But when it comes to colonization, it's not so much that it's not really something that you could tolerate. Or maybe you can, and that's what we see with a lot of African people, that they actually do begin to tolerate how Wazungu comes inside and just like directs everything. But that's why it's decolonization is the objective. But it's also something that we have to recognize too, the fact that a lot of black people do like don't mind being colonized, or they just want a better position in that colony, and
Why is that the case?
you said, why is that the case? Well, all right. So here's a story I'm trying to write. I'm gonna just go into that for a second. I'm trying to write this story, a short story on like Mars or whatever, right? Like, what if there were Africans on Mars? Not Africans on Mars, like
Mars.
no. Like if white people made a colony on Mars, and then they, like in the future, right? And then for 1,000 years, black folk were living in Mars, right? But they were living as subordinates, right? The reality is that now for the story, the reason why I can't really write the story is because there's no real story here. But the thing you would pick up on is that if black people were living on Mars for 1,000 years, they might not identify as Earthlings, But also, if you're on Mars, it's possible that, and you like people like abandon the Earth, and the Mars was like the rich, just place in the known cosmos for for human beings, right? Like
Big desert.
no, I'm talking about like a terraformed Mars. I'm talking about a terraformed Mars. Yeah, like a colony, like a literal colony, right? So like if the rich folk in America right now or around the world were to go and move their wealth over to Mars and make a futuristic, well, it would be present day for them.
Doing that now, bro.
You said what?
Low-key doing that now.
Exactly. So that the story is trying to explore that kind of outcome. So, but the point being though is that if you were to live there as an African person, you might be doing better off than the people on Earth who were left behind, right? Like monetarily, right? But it would still be a colony that somebody else set up, However, you would look at this lifestyle that you have as better than the lifestyle of the people left behind on Earth, and you wouldn't want to identify with the people on Earth. And of course, it's a parallel of what you see with the quote-unquote African American in America, where they feel like, well, where it was a colony established by these, well-to-do white folk, and it enables, like for instance, I heard a brother, matter of fact, PC, yesterday say that African Americans are the richest African population on the planet or something like that, something along those lines. And I don't know if it's true or not, but it's definitely an impression that people have. And also there's an availability of technology. There's like on average, right?
Is it rich? Like maybe access to
I said income. Possibly, but I don't know. But the point being though is that, like the access to technology that we have in America, the access to, high income, the access so on and so forth. It just kind of, it's something that the colony, that you can get in a colony that you can't get outside of the colony, right? And so,
Correlated, basically.
you said what?
It's correlated.
Yeah, and so what and it's the same you saw in South Africa or any part of Africa really where the colony, like when the white folk came to Africa, they established colonies that had better technology than outside of the colony. They had better, opportunities outside of outside because what the trains, the roads, the buildings, the architect, like all of that was brought in by the colonizers. So there would be some Africans, the airplane, the opportunity to be pilots, the opportunity to be drivers, the opportunity to so on and so forth. That exists only in the Wazungu's colony. So yes, there will be people who say, hey, you know what, that's a lifestyle. And the reality is that, particularly at this day and age, a lot of African people may say that because where are you going to get a PS5? Where are you going to get where are you going to get a gaming device? Where are you going to get internet? Where are you going to get that outside of the colony? If there are no African nations that are built up, that even parallel or even compare. So yeah, there's going to be a lot of people who will be opposed to decolonization. Because at the end of the day, like I said, like not just that, like clean drinking water. Although you already had clean drinking water, but now if Wazungu pollutes the water and Wazungu kills the animals and the Wazungu, you know what I mean? Like at some point, the circumstances outside of the colony don't look as nice when the colony itself is responsible for the destruction outside. But when you're born, 400 years after the buffalo are extinct or endangered or whatever, you can't really compare. Well, the buffalo life is better because you can't live off a buffalo anymore.
Used to be no.
Yeah, exactly. But you can't even remember a buffalo occasion. Like none of us could remember, let's say the oil empire. You know what I mean? Like none of us because.
What do you say?
Exactly. That's the point. like that's the point. Anyway, all right. Let me go before somebody says, "Wait, I thought you were reading the book." All right. Better says peace, fam. So peace, brother. All right. So whatever level we study it. So he says that whatever level we study it, individual encounters, a change of names for a sports club, the guest list at a cocktail party, members of a police force, or the board of director of a state or private bank, decolonization is quite simply the substitution of one species of mankind by another, right? So substituting the ruling class with another ruling class, to be honest. And that's really what all of these isms are about. Just to clarify for people who might not be familiar, Marxism is about replacing the bourgeois ruling class with the proletariat ruling class. That's why it's called the dictatorship of the proletariat. Is it feasible? I don't think so. But that's like realistically speaking, there's a ruling class in every animal species, humans included. Okay. Every animal species has a ruling class or a ruling circle, and the objective of intelligent and functional people is to be a part of that ruling family, that ruling circle, that ruling class. If
you don't, you end up being scavengers.
If you don't have a ruling class, you probably would be scavengers. But I think the scavengers have ruling classes. I'm not too sure, but yeah, you functionally, you do want to have that. You want to be a part of that ruling circle, or not. If not a part of that ruling circle, have some sort of influence in that ruling circle. One of the issues that you have with colonization, or even capitalist countries, or like countries, not capitalist countries, but like countries like America and so on and so forth, is that black people are not a part of the ruling circle, are not a part of the ruling class, and really have no real influence in those ruling circles, ruling class. So
they don't align with the interests of those that look like them, is for to uphold what the ruling class entails.
You said what?
I'm saying that if they are in that.
Oh yeah, if they are, if they are, they're
upholding the standards.
Exactly. They're what they say puppets, or like if they step out of bounds or step out of line, usually consequences are pretty ready. But we as the people have to understand why that's the case, because again, if you set up a colony, you like I said about the Mars colony situation, right? if people were on Mars saying, hey, you know what, we were living here for 1,000 years, which is, longer than anybody lived in America or whatever, right? But we were living here for 1,000 years. We're now Martians or whatever. And, you'd expect that kind of stuff, right? But the reality is that you would not have a claim. Like if you were ruling a colony, like if you set up a colony on Mars, you terraform the planet and all that kind of stuff, or you foot the bill for the terraforming or whatever, and maybe you of course you use human labor. You would, like, if somebody comes along later and says, hey, I have a claim to Mars, you'd have to fight them. You know what I mean?
You want shooting at me with the gym?
You said what?
You want shooting with me in the gym?
You was shooting me in the gym?
I thought you want shooting with me in the gym. It's like basically you weren't there when I was grinding. That's what I'm saying.
Exactly. Like, and I mean, the thing is this, that the issue is that, and the thing is this, that realistically speaking, the cost of going to Mars is
it's essentially an investment because
it's always an investment, and that's the thing. That's what happened with America. It was like there was a cost. Now, obviously, one of the expenses were human beings, and that's
human capital.
Yeah, well, no, human beings. Like, they literally bought people. But
That's why I said human capital. That's what I'm saying.
yeah. But and so those humans that were being used, because apparently a lot of America, like, we're talking about America now, but America was terraformed. A lot of America was forests, and they used enslaved Africans to clear the land, and it was like a dangerous occupation where many of those people have died.
I think they said, at least from what I've read before, they tried it with the Native Americans at first, where they sickness, et cetera, and they couldn't, and
Yeah, they tried it with that. They tried it with other people. Then they tried it with their own poor. They tried it with their with Africans that were captured, and a lot of them, I don't even know if they had descendants. Today. But the point being, though, is that that terraforming.
I didn't even think of that.
Yeah, that terraforming happened, and in so much as it happened, but at the same time, it was at a cost to the colonists. Now, obviously, not as huge a cost, wasn't a life cost, but it wasn't. But they're not like batting an eye at that either. I mean, obviously, it's not as extreme. Although maybe some of them died too. Who knows? But obviously, not enough. Let's keep going. Decolonization, quite simply. The substitution is unconditional, absolute, total, and stimulus. So he's saying the substitution of one ruling class for another is total and absolute. And this is something that we don't see in Africa. This is why neocolonialism is a thing, because we had colonies, and then we replaced the ruling class, but not really, and it makes sense, because we have to be realistic about what colonies were. You said what?
They just changed clothes. Right?
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. We have to be realistic. Why? Because it's like this. Let's say you had a gym, let's say you had a gym in your community, right? And then you're like, hey, no, this gym should function for our people instead of rich white people, from the outside. So then you replace everybody in the gym with the indigenous black people, but the rules and protocols aren't really going to be transformed immediately, too quickly, because
playing lacrosse.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, you because at the end of the day, if you're running a gym, you have to realize that outside of the gym is where a lot of the influence comes. So you still have the same TV ad commercial, like the TV ad company. You just go to them and but that's a white institution that was already outside. Or you still have the same, you still have the same field or the same whatever. Like you still don't have a football field. You have a lacrosse field. I mean, it might be the same thing. I don't know. But you still have that. You still don't have any basketball. You still have. You said what?
Badminton.
Yeah, you still have something, because at the end of the day, it's like in order to change and transform it completely, right? It would be cost exorbitant, and you might not necessarily have the experience to do that, So when it comes to the colonies, though, it's like if you take over a country, right? Like, real talk, you're now responsible for the education of millions of people. You're responsible for the shipping and transportation of billions of goods. You're responsible for the health care of millions of people. And you're responsible, and the question is, what were you You said what? Yeah, it's a tall task, and it's like, what were you doing before you were the president? You know, a lot of people were not doing, like, a lot of people are not really prepared to do that kind of stuff. So you say, okay, well, how is healthcare functioning? Well, we're just going to make this more available. And then a lot of times you realize that you have all these things that you want to get done. Like, for instance, some people would say, I saw a comment the other day. It said, why is it that $275? You spend $275 on like why are you charging people? Why are you arresting people for jumping the bus towel for $275? And it's like, well, if you make the buses like what are you going to do? Are you going to say the buses are free? And then now the buses are free, you're still paying the drivers, you're not getting any resources back, and then it's gonna crush your transportation model. So you might have all these high ideals of what to do, what not to do, but at the end of the day, you still have to buy fuel. And then who are you buying the fuel from? You're buying the fuel from the people who were trading with the colony, before you had the revolution.
There's a chain of command of the process to it, and I think a lot of people forget that aspect.
Yeah.
Ideally, it's nice for everyone to have all the resources they need, but like somebody has to bring those resources. Someone has to cultivate those resources.
Yeah, and so you don't have, if you're starting out, let's say, let's say Nigeria, right? You're starting off, ruling Nigeria. You don't. All right, Togo. Let's say Togo. you start off. Always done it. Hey, you start off ruling Togo, right? You don't have. I don't know if Togo was colonized by England or not, but you don't have the French? Oh, okay. You don't have the resources that France does. You don't have the connect that France does. You don't have the pull that France does. France can get oil for cheap from, let's say, Iran or something, right? You in Togo can't get oil for cheap from anywhere, right? And so now all of a sudden you do this revolution, your ties to Iranian oil is cut, right? And suddenly but you still have to, fuel the, like literally, right? You still have to have fuel in your country. Now the fuel prices are increasing and people are saying, hey, well, so on and so forth. Now, what you could do is you could keep that same connection, but then people are going to say, oh, you're a puppet and a sellout. But what are you supposed to do?
Even trying to establish a new one, you're at a disadvantage. So the leverage you would have, you end up paying more.
Exactly. And then people say, hey, you know what? Your socialism or whatever failed. Right, but it didn't fail. Or then other people might even say, "Hey, well, look, the people outside of your community. I mean, it's really complicated. You're going to get critiqued regardless. You're going to get criticism regardless. But also, it might be that you plain just didn't even understand the scope and the grasp, and you don't have the right people in charge. And then there's also going to be these other ethnic conflicts that are brewing up right underneath you. There's so much that's going to be happening. And so sometimes it's not total and absolute. And then we say, hey, those are neo-colonies. And sometimes they are total and absolute. And it's difficult. And you still have new problems. But that's obviously just a little sidebar. I really should be moving faster, but no. It's not you, but it's just me. But anyway, we could go on to I know it's me. But we could go on to portray the rise of a new nation, the establishment of a new state, its diplomatic relations, and its economic and political orientation. So he says we could do all that, but instead we have decided to describe the kind of tabula rasa which from the outset defines any decolonization. Tabula rasa is blank slate, right? I believe. I can't remember, but it might be. All right. What is singularly important is that it starts from the very first day with the basic claims of the colonized. In actual fact, proof of success lies in a social fabric that has been changed inside out. This change is extraordinarily important because it is desired, clamored for, and demanded. The need for this change exists in a raw, repressed, and reckless state in the lives and consciousness of colonized men and women. But the eventuality of such a change is also experienced as a terrifying future in the consciousness of another species of men and women, the colons, the colonists. So he's saying the eventuality of so that's the thing. He's like people who colonize other people know that eventually that colony is going to be destroyed, right? And it's a terrifying future that they're trying to prevent, and for good reason,
As many resources as you can while you can.
Well, exactly. For good reason. Like again, if you let's say for instance you do say, I'm going to set up shop in somebody else's house. You know what I mean? Like you just say you're going to do that. Because it's going to pay you. It's going to be good. Let's say they have a good location for other things that you may want. It's like prime real estate, whatever. You're going to, like, your time is limited, but you're going to try to fight it. And especially, and if you're getting away with it, you're getting away with it and you're doing good. This is what's happened in South Africa, really, right? But this is what happened in Africa all over, where people understand, hey, look, like, we have a good thing going and it could last. When we talk about settler colonialism, we often think of Israel and Palestine and how, the Israelis just kind of have Palestine and that doesn't seem like it's going to end. But if you really want to talk about settler colonialism, you just got to look at the United States of America. The United States of America was like native, like Amerindian land. Okay. It was Amerindian land and they just came and settled and took it over completely, to the point where even, black people or anybody, nobody would say turn the land back to Native Americans. Like, very, very few people would say turn the land back to Native Americans. They just got their land stolen, and it was long enough that, everybody just says, that land is the white man's. And so it's a possibility anywhere on the planet. And it's just a matter of how can you go about with it. With the white man in America, he just killed most all the Native Americans. The same it happened in Canada. They just killed most of the natives. They just killed most of the natives, and then secluded them to like a small reservations where they have total control to reserve their lives. But this would technically be their land that was just stolen from them, and they could do this anywhere, as long as they have the force. So it's like, they at one point they did have a fear, but and that's why. If you guys remember what white people used to say about Native Americans, they said the only good, well, they used to call them Indians, but they said the only good Indian is a dead Indian, and that's how they feel. That's how they looked at it. Decolonization, because again, they have a land claim, or they would fight for their land. They can't, like, they want decolonization, but now they're just too weak to do anything, and nobody believes that they would get America anytime soon. Decolonization, which sets out to change the order of the world, is clearly an agenda for total disorder, but it cannot be accomplished. See, he said it again. Decolonization is about disorder, right? It's going to change the order of the world. The order of the world is colonies. People set up colonies. This is what America is. It's a colony, right? But it cannot be accomplished by the wave of a magic wand, a natural cataclysm, or a gentleman's agreement. Decolonization, we know, is an historical process. In other words, it can only be understood, it can only find its significance and become self-coherent insofar as we discern the history-making movement which gives its form and substance. Decolonization is the encounter between two congenitally antagonistic forces that, in fact, owe their singularity to the kind of reification secreted and nurtured by the colonial situation. The first confrontation was colored by violence and their cohabitation, or rather the exploitation of the colonized by the colonizer, continued at the point of the bayonet and under cannon fire. The colonists and the colonized are old acquaintances, and consequently, the colonist is right when he says he knows them. It is the colonist who fabricated and continues to fabricate the colonized subject. The colonist derives his validity, i.e. his wealth, from the colonial system. So again, like I said, I had this interesting conversation with that brother PC, and he had this interesting notion where he says, because my family wasn't born in America, I can't understand African Americans as deeply as he could, apparently, right? But I pointed out to him, I said, look, this was actually a passage that I read earlier. I said I read to my son, and I was like, yo, this is deep, man. You understand this? And he's just, what? But the thing is this, that realistically speaking, and this is something that we know, I think I wrote it inside of the Book of Power. I wrote the Book of Power, right? But I think I wrote in the Book of Power where it's like, realistically speaking, the person who, right? This guy, yo. The person who understands black people probably best or up there, right, is this white boy. And the reasoning behind that statement is the fact that, like, obviously the supplemental evidence would be, if you really try to find out something about black people, you could just, like, you just check with the libraries, you check on the internet. All of that is what white people set up, right? But But if you're realistic about it, you go back to this statement where he says the colonist fabricated and continues to fabricate the colonized subject. Okay, that is to say that your entire you're basically like if you're an African in America, right? You're basically an African who was removed or voluntarily came to another person's colony, another person's country. So everything inside of this colony was set up by the colonists. You know, everything is under the control of the colonists, so that you who are now in this colony are now also in control in under the control of this colonist. You know,
Basically, get in line.
exactly. Well, that's what you would do. Like if you're in somebody else's home, because now all of a sudden you're in their home. You know, it's like you. Well, in the example of them coming to your land in Africa or whatever, you would think. I mean, you would still think that it's your home, but like when they completely redecorate and they set the clock, they wake you up, they tell you what to do, they tell you to go outside and get some money, all that kind of stuff. It's really their home, and you just want it back. That's the case. But now in the case of like something like America or Europe or wherever, where it has nothing to do with you, where it's outside of Africa, you're now in their home. You know, because it was technically the Native Americans' land, let's say in America, technically the Native Americans' land, but he lost that, right? And so now it's Wazungu's land, and you're there. You said what?
That's not true. What about the black people that are already here?
Oh man, I couldn't even hold it in, man. It couldn't even hold it in. Anyway, no, I mean, look, I'm not going to say that there were no black people, but you weren't here. And again, it doesn't matter. It's like,
Surely I was not here, though.
no. What I mean is that like it wouldn't even matter because again, they made it their home. It's like if there were realistically speaking, like if there were unoccupied land, like at the end of the day. Like they set up a New York, like what they call New York? They used to call it New Amsterdam. Like they had an Amsterdam, and they set up another copy.
Hampshire, New Jersey.
Exactly, a new facsimile of Amsterdam, a European city. Here in America, they set that up, and that's where you are now existing. You're cohabiting with them in their land, and so the example that I used, to make it a little more clear is like, who understands prison better, the prisoner or the warden, because the prisoner can tell you about their personal experience, but the warden of like several years can tell you about the experience of pretty much everybody who's been in there, and so that's really where it comes to. Or even another example would be the soldier versus the general. The soldier could tell you their experience on the field. Oh, I got shot in the leg or something, right? I took an arrow to the knee or whatever, right? But the nerds are gonna get that. All right. Anyway, but
Did you just say an arrow to the knee? Who's wars with bows and arrows?
It's a nerd reference. But anyway, but they'll get it. All right. But anyway, you said Comic-Con? Yeah. But the thing is this though, that the general knows who's gonna die before they die. You know what I mean? Like he knows he's sending these people to like divert attention, but he knows there's no escape for them already. Or he knows he's gonna take like that's the big difference. So the colonist actually fabricates the existence because human beings have to have a role, in whatever society they're in. But the roles are created and regulated by the colonists themselves. You know, now obviously there's going to be some black market kind of stuff, blah blah blah. But they call it black market, whatever. But the point is that even if you do have that black market, the colonist already knows about it. Not every colonized person knows about this black market. Not every colonized person knows. And I think a better example to even do this is that the drug dealer in a community might be like, yeah, I sell marijuana, blah 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 blah, right? But the police of that area can tell you the percentage of people who are selling marijuana, where they're selling it, in different. They got the whole database. The colonist has the whole database, and they fabricate the existence so that and they control it so that these black drug dealers are going to only deal drugs in black communities. How we're going to enforce that? Because the other most important part of the colony is the violence, but in the form of the police, and Franz Fanon is going to go over that. So let's go. So decolonization never goes unnoticed, for it focuses on and fundamentally alters being and transforms the spectator crushed to a non-essential state into a privileged actor, captured in a virtually grandiose fashion by the spotlight of history. It infuses a new rhythm, specific to a new generation of men, with a new language and a new humanity. Decolonization is truly the creation of new men, but such a creation cannot be attributed to a supernatural power. The thing colonized becomes a man through the very process of liberation. He's saying, you become a man through liberation, right? Decolonization, you change from a thing to a man, right? You're no longer the property in a sense, right? Decolonization, therefore, implies the urgent need to thoroughly challenge the colonial situation. Its definition can, if we want to describe it accurately, be summed up in the well-known words, "the last shall be first." I'm pretty sure this is a biblical thing. I don't know why. Anyway, decolonization is verification of this.
That's great.
You said what?
That's great.
That's great, you said?
Did I stutter?
I don't know what that means. Why is that great?
I don't know.
Anyway, decolonization is verification of this. Yeah, I'm trying to think you're a troll, man. Anyway, but decolonization is verification of this.
I'm trying to help.
That's great. And the script level. What is it? Tony the Tiger over here, man. Anyway. Decolonization is verification of this. At a scripted level, therefore, any decolonization is a success, right? So it is. In its bare reality, decolonization reeks of red-hot cannonballs and bloody knives. It's violence. For the last can be the first only after a murderous and decisive confrontation between the two protagonists. This determination to have the last move to the front, to have them clamber up too quickly, say some, the famous echelons of an organized society, can only succeed by resorting to every means, including, of course, violence. And, this is one of the main things about Europeans, right? Yeah. So this is what Martin Delaney wrote in one of his books. I think it's like something Colored Immigration, the long title, right? But he points out that white people, every white community, right, has an underclass, okay? Every white nation has an underclass. Once upon, like, if you go to, I can't remember the countries particularly, but, like, if you go to, like, let's say Russia, it's the Poles. I want to say if you go to some Western European countries, it's the Gypsies. If you go to another place, it's the Slavs. And if you know another place, it's the Jews. There's always a population. And so what happens in America is that, that would be the African Americans, so on and so forth. And the way how this works, though, if we want to really understand this, this colonization, is that if you have a colony, right? If you set up a colony, if your family, your family's the ruling family, you guys set up a colony, a colony basically meaning that you set up an organized society, right? Your family comes first, okay? Your community, your people come first. And then the other people who are not your people do not come before your people, right? This makes them last, okay? So, sometimes people ask, I saw somebody ask the question on Twitter. They were like, why is it that Karen and Kevin aren't, harassed by the flight, the guard that fly, the air marshal, right? And they're like,
that's Karen and Kevin's brother and sister.
Exactly, because the air marshal is not they're not supposed to go after Karen and Kevin. They're supposed to go after, brandy and like whatever. Like the point is that they're supposed to go after you. You know what I'm saying? But they're supposed to go after you. They're not supposed to go after. You know what I mean? So the thing is that if you set up a colony, it's really for the benefit of your people. Like when the Americans came to.
What's the point of having a colony if you're not going to benefit the people you have in there?
Exactly. When America came to the United States, it was like the Pilgrims got more than the Amerindians. Like it's just common sense. You're not going to give the Amerindians as much as you're going to give the Pilgrims, the white Americans, right? The same with and that same mentality continues. If you travel from Europe with expensive ships, an expensive army, and you go all the way down to Ghana, right? The Gold Coast, in order to get gold, okay? You're going to set it up so that you get gold. You're not setting it up so that the people in Ghana also get gold. You're not setting it up so that the people in Ghana, if there's a conflict between the people in Ghana, or the Africans in Ghana and the Europeans who came from Britain, right? Or the United Kingdom or whatever, you're not going to set it up so that if they're both of them fight, that they get the same punishment. Why? Because the person the white boy who came from England, right, is your people, and the black man who's the broke ass black dude, he's not your people. You understand? So the colony is set up just that way, and so in order for that African person to get the access to the goal, to get to be the first over you who traveled and spent all that money in order to get there, right? And has the army and is watching the gold and all that. In order for that African to be the first, right? That's not going to happen without violence. You know what I mean? And I want people to understand that, because one of the things that we do as a people is that we tend to, complain and whine. Why don't we have equality before the law? But it's like, because it's not your law. It's like you see a black person.
We're human beings and citizens too. So what are you talking about?
Exactly. That's why I put that example of the guy. And I know you're trolling, but anyway, that's why I put the example of the guy of the people. Well, that's why I put the example of the Englishman going to Africa. Is in order to get gold, right? The whole colony, the whole reason why the experience was funded was for them to get gold. That's the whole reason. Now you wanting to be if you're an African person who wants to be a citizen of that Gold Coast, but you also want to get gold, even though the whole point is to bring gold back to the Queen of England, right? Then either you have to fall in line and say, yeah, I also want to send gold to England, right? But if you instead think, well, I think I'm a citizen, so I'm entitled to the Queen's gold or the King's gold or whatever, right? Then that's where you have this conflict. And that's what you have all over America, where you have black people, like white people commit a crime, black people commit a crime, right? And it's like, white people commit a crime, yeah, okay, okay, they messed up. Black people commit a crime, and it's like, whoa, what is this? The beginning of a revolution? You know what I mean? Like, what is going on? We did not travel here to set up shop, to set up a colony, so that you could try to implement disorder in our community. Is there going to be disorder inside of a community? Absolutely. But do we want it from an outsider? It's the same as like if something happens in your family versus something happens with strangers. Your family member, like for instance, let's say, let's go back to the PlayStation 5 example, and we could use Machiavelli. Let's say, Machiavelli, I'm pretty sure you have a brother, right? So let's say your brother or your cousin or whatever, just pops up in your house, takes your PS5 and goes about his business, right? And just plays the game, doesn't really tell you, just does it, right? That's fine, right? Now, let's just say it's somebody else just possibly your house, takes your PS5, doesn't tell you. That's not fine.
I'm calling the police.
Why? Yeah, old snitch over here. But anyway, but you see this. That's what I'm saying though. It's like there's a huge difference, So it's like if a white person does a crime inside of a white colony, it's like, oh, okay, I mean, like you still don't know the fool, but it's like, all right, like you said, I'll slap him on the wrist. He probably was, feeling bad. Maybe there's something neurotic about this dude. He's white, everything's doing good for them. What's going on? Black person does the same thing, and it's like, whoa. Like I never trusted them to begin with. Like why are these people even here? And that's what's really happening. You might technically be citizens or have citizenship on paper, and but that citizenship thing, if we're being honest, is just another form of control. Just another form of how to keep you in control and keep files and documents on you. Because as a citizen, now, if you want to leave the country, if you want to come into the country, if you want to get married, if you want to drive a car, if you want to do any of that stuff, you have to fill it out. You have to get permission from the you got to get the permission. It's called a license, right? Yeah. So license just basically means you getting permission. So
license certification.
Yeah, they're called that. That's what it is. It's just you getting permission so that they know and keep tabs on you. You don't just buy a house. You have to tell them you're buying a house. In fact, all the money that you earn for a year, you got to tell them, and they keeping tabs on you. So now they know all your income resources, all your income sources. They know this, so on and so forth. If you want to get married, you got to tell them. If that's a marriage license. If you want to hold a wedding, you got to tell them. If you want to drive a car, you got to tell them. If you want to buy a gun, you got to tell them. So it's like
not all places you gotta tell them.
With a gun license.
Well, in the South you can own a rifle without a gun license, because like technically you go for hunting with that.
Mm-hmm.
You don't get any certification or like registration for that.
Yeah.
Rifle.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, but yeah, I mean, even if you want to go fishing, you gotta tell them. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. Some places you have to.
I mean, yeah, obviously, like they don't really care about like everything, like like they don't care if what I'm saying. Yeah, like if you got a little pea shooter, they're just like, okay, have fun with that. You know what I mean? Like they don't care if you got your little Nerf gun. You got your little Nerf gun. You don't gotta tell them. You know what I'm saying? They ain't worried about that. They're not threatened by a Nerf gun. But if you exactly. If you got like a Glock 9, 9X or whatever, you got a Uzi, you gotta let them know. They're like, okay, let me know. Like that's the whole thing, though. It's like, yeah, your citizenship extends that far, where it's pretty much they own you, and you have to seek permission from them, and they have to you have to pass like their psych evaluations and so on and so forth, where they can deny you whatever it is you wish to attain, and put a bunch of fees and so on and so forth while they do it, So yeah, you like your citizenship is pretty much that, you're subject to subordination and a lack of privacy and all that kind of stuff. It's like being a member of the prison. You know what I mean? Like sure you're a member, but you're the prisoner. You know what I'm saying? like sure you in a prison, but what was it? Raymond's echelon. I think I read this one. Yeah. So you do not disorganize a society, however primitive it may be, with such an agenda if you are not determined from the very start to smash every obstacle encountered. Right. And so, I mean, I want to point out that too, that, so Nigeria used to be a colony, right? I keep saying Nigeria. I don't know any other, all right, Ghana. All right. So Ghana used to be a colony.
Every other modern day country in the continent, maybe other than like Ethiopia, was a colony.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah. So Ghana, but I think Nkrumah did a good job. So I don't know, because Nkrumah was like actively not trying to be a neo-colonist. So I can't really use him as an example.
I was like, at least growing up, Nkrumah was like always heralded and stuff. Just recently, I've just seen people saying he wasn't like that.
Yeah, exactly. I saw that too, where it's like he just kept the resource extraction as well. But that's the thing, though. It's like
he got a coup and then he was exiled. So I mean, I don't know about that.
Oh yeah, true that. Well, no, he did. Yeah, he did. No, but like a lot of people, he got a lot of indigenous support for that coup. You know what I mean? notwithstanding. Like apparently Nyerere wouldn't, like, you could, like the state, like the United States was petitioned by one of his friends, right? Friends, right? To, do a coup over there, and they were like, no, we can't do that because he's too well liked, you know. Whereas for Nkrumah, it was like, yeah, there was because the thing is that I think he had the, yeah, I think he had this, yeah, it was like people signing up, yeah, but it's like I think he had like one of them foreign banks too, you know what I mean? But like that's the thing, it's like, if you have like if you take over, like if you really remove everybody from a community, now all of a sudden your people have to do all the waterworks, your people have to do all the banking, all the financial services, your people have to do all the postage. Yeah.
A lot of things that break a lot of things. Like, you can have a knowledge base, you can have all this, but like just you need water, bro. You need electricity.
And then the thing is this, but you also need people to work that stuff. You know? And it's like, and the thing is this though, that if they're working that stuff, it's like, what's the difference between being in the colony or not? Like if you keep up the same infrastructure, the same system, then what's the difference? You exactly. It's like, oh, now. And that's one of the issues that a lot of black people have. Although you shouldn't have that issue, you should actually embrace it. But that's the thing. It becomes.
That's the thing of education and identity, though. That's another concept.
Yeah, it's complicated because again, like you have the water filtration company, you kick out all the white people. None of the black people really know how to do the same thing, or they do, or they have to study. They didn't really learn how to do it, and then. Exactly. That you took out all these white folk, all the managers, all the so on and so forth, and it's like this is the fabrication of the quote unquote dictatorship of the proletariat, where you get rid of the bourgeoisie and the managerial class and all that kind of stuff, and then you're left with a bunch of proletariats, a bunch of janitors. You know what I mean? And then they're like, yeah, I could run this solar, power company. Yeah, I know. So I've been standing in the cut. Like, well, all I remember is that when I mopped this place, it went well. Like, yeah, that's not all that happened. I mean, yeah, no hate on a janitor. You janitors are good, but like,
they serve a very important purpose.
Yeah, but I mean, and look, I understand the issue with saying, well, nobody should be a janitor, right? Like, nobody should only be a janitor. Everybody should take part in cleaning. I get that principally. I get that principally, but it's like, cause I noticed somebody was telling me they wanted to like divide the labor, sort of make one day be this, one day that, all that kind of stuff.
That's not efficient at all.
Exactly, because like let's say you're a brain surgeon. Yeah, you're a brain surgeon. Like only so many people gonna be brain surgeons. Now you're gonna have this brain surgeon mopping the floor for what? Just to prove some humility. Let him just fix this guy's brain, all right? Not everybody got the hands for that. You know what I mean? Like this dude got the hands, dexterity. They memorize all this stuff. Like let the man do this. And sure, maybe he should mop the floor. Maybe he should put away the dishes. I don't know, but let's let him do the brain surgery.
Dishwasher, he wants to feel important, bro.
Yeah, exactly. The dishwasher now doing the brain surgery, and you're like, what?
Paralyze this dude.
Exactly. You know what I mean? But anyway, let me stop. This brother talking about anyway. You do not disorganize society, however primitive it may be. If you're determined to smash every obstacle. So the colonized who have made up their mind to make such an agenda into a driving force have been prepared for violence from time immemorial. As soon as they are born, it is obvious to them that their cramped world, riddled with taboos, can only be challenged by out-and-out violence, right? So again, you might have to like kill all these people. And again, like this could work. I think that's what
essentially this whole thing is violence is really like
this chapter it seems like yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No, this chapter seems like violence. But like here's the thing. So Mao does this in China. He does this cultural revolution and he kills the Western sympathizers and a lot of the
they love Mao, bro.
Intellectuals. Who loves Mao?
The Chinese.
Oh yeah, but like so you could technically get rid of all the surgeons. I mean, will there be terrible? Yeah, they'll be terrible.
Growing pains, literally.
Yeah, you understand? But at the same time, it's like if you have confidence in your ability to educate your people, re-educate them, so on and so forth, then maybe possibly the short-term consequences will have long-term benefits. Now, obviously, now here's the thing though. Realistically speaking, if I remember correctly, China did send people to the West to learn things. But yeah, exactly. But the thing is that
brain train wasn't an issue necessarily.
exactly the thing is that China. One of the things that China did that was important was it. Dang, I forgot what I was gonna say. but like, oh yeah. So what it did was it got rid of the Western loyalists. You know. So what happens is that right here now in Africa, or around the African diaspora, we have Western loyalists. You know. Yeah, we have a lot of Western loyalists, and they're not going anywhere. In fact, they're the ones who are getting the leadership positions because they got Western backing. They got like at the end of the day, they have more resources for this quote unquote democratic project, and they have like for instance, if some race trader, yeah, exactly, there's some race trader wants to go on TV, they got him. You know what I mean? Like he could go on this TV, mass media. Yeah, they can run. Like if you were gonna run an election against them, they would most likely win. Not for having a better platform, but because they have better backing. So and
millions behind you, and I got about a couple of dollars. What am I gonna do?
Exactly. So it's like in that sense, yeah. You have to get rid of these Western loyalists, or you could say, hey, you know what? We could keep the Western loyalists, and we're going to run a fair game, and it's going to go right back to the West. You're going to hand it right back to the West. So China just said, nah, we're not even doing that. Thanos, snapped his finger. 10% of the population was gone, and that was it. It was back to pro China. And now apparently even white folk.
Only instead of 1 billion, they got 900 million.
Exactly. Yeah. Now, but here's the thing. Now, even white people are saying that the most, because somebody showed a picture of I can't remember some U.S. president. I can't remember. It might have been, but they were like, "This is the most powerful man in the world." And they were like, "No, it's Jing Yang-ping or whatever." You know what I mean? Like whatever his name is. But they like, yeah.
Relax,
On
bro.
the name?
Yeah, don't be naming names like that. Relax.
I don't think that was his name though.
I thought it sounded like it.
I don't know. But like they say, he's the most powerful person in the world, So it's like, that's it. Wait, why you say relax, man? Is he that powerful?
And it's not testing now.
Well, look, he.
Don't push me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, look. Yo, bro, man. Yo, what you talking through your purse, man? Anyway, all right, let me stop. All right, so the colonial world. Now you got me sweating, man. All right, let me cut this podcast off.
You sweating?
Like, what? I wasn't saying his name. I thought he liked that. I was complimenting the dude. All right, anyway, no. So the colonial world is a compartmentalized world. It is obviously as superfluous to recall the existence of native towns and European towns, of schools for natives and schools for Europeans, as it is to recall apartheid in South Africa. Yet if we penetrate inside this compartmentalization, we shall at least bring to light some of its key aspects. By penetrating its geographical configuration and classification, we shall be able to delineate the backbone on which the decolonized society is reorganized. So yeah, obviously two different schools, two different people, and like again, we see this thing like you.
They still control the school.
Exactly, because they made both schools. They made the native town. Like that's the thing that I want people to pick up on too. There was this debate between, all right, this is where I could actually say Nigerian, right? This Nigerian guy and a South African woman, right? They're both teens, and the South African woman is explaining to this Nigerian brother, right? She's a white woman, right? But she's explaining to this Nigerian brother that they built all the schools, all the homes that the South Africans are now living in. Like these white people literally went out and built the homes that they're living in. And she's saying, well, they should be grateful, right? And of course, the Nigerian is, saying, no, you should be grateful because you got all this money you built it with the wealth that was there in South Africa that you stole, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, I think one thing we got to do is we got to learn what words mean. Grateful.
No, but look, the thing is this though. They came to South Africa. Well, she in her mind, they came to South Africa and the land was not being used by anybody, right? Which is not the case, obviously. But the reality is this.
Based on they view your land usage anyway. But that's no.
Exactly. But like here's the thing though. The reality is this: that if you are a well, there's two things to it, right? Or even just to be clear, there are diamonds. All right, let's say it's even your house, right? You don't care for diamonds, right? For some reason, there are diamonds under your house, right? Somebody now comes into your house and takes those diamonds. Whose diamonds are they?
Hey, yo, bro, relax. It's my house, bro.
No, let's just say, like, realistically speaking, you're not even doing anything with the diamonds, right? You don't care for the diamonds. You don't really give a whatever. The diamonds are only worth something.
If they possess it, then yes, it's there.
And then not just that too, or even if they had to like dig for it, I mean they dig for it or whatever. But here's the thing too: diamonds aren't worth anything in your economy. Diamonds are only worth something in Europe. Okay, you don't have any connections in Europe. You don't even know where Europe is. Okay, you now they make a bunch of money off of selling these diamonds to other Europeans, right? And then you say, "Where's my cut? Why do you have a cut?" You understand? Now.
I guess. Well, I mean, I guess it's obvious the reason is because it came from their land.
Well, all right, and here's another thing too. So, like, realistically speaking, right? A lot of times, like, let's say even if this were your land, all right, let's say it this way. Let's say it's my house, right? Let's say it's my house. Okay, they come in and they kill me.
Sure.
Okay, they just come and kill me. Now.
That's graphic. Go ahead.
Now here's the thing. I wasn't gonna say about you. That's just mean, right? And plus, I was the one trash talking. You said what?
You do that time to time.
No. And plus, I'm the one who trash talk. No, I'm the one who talked about the the most powerful man in the world. So if anything, I'm saying no. Anyway, but like what I'm saying is this though. I saw it was a YouTube video. It was like that was the comments that was in the YouTube section. All right, whatever. Anyway, but like here's the thing though. They kill me right now. Nobody owns that land. Okay. They come in.
They repossess it.
You said the state.
Yeah, I'm not going. I'm just.
Oh yeah. So now they come in and they take that land. Now you are now saying, well, where's my cut? And why are you saying that? You understand? Like when it was your direct line, when you happen to still be there, sure, that makes a lot of sense, right? Maybe it makes a little sense, right? And the thing is, it's like, why do you have a cut? I don't know per se, because realistically speaking, you weren't doing anything with the gold or whatever. You weren't doing anything with diamonds, and you couldn't sell it to Europe. But even if you could, right? Then the question becomes, well, okay, now they took it from you. Now they took it from somebody else that just looks like you, or has the same complexion or the same skin as you, whatever, right? And I know you're like, what? We don't have this. Anyway, point is that we do that, right? Now you want to cut, and this is the thing I think
a better example could be, let's say like you own an item, like a piece of art, you find like from an artist and everything, you own it for like years and years, and then you're like, nah, you don't really care about it, you sold it for $5, I'll buy it from you, and then I hold it. I know that like the artist, becomes real famous, and the art goes for like $10,000, right? And I sell it. Come back to me, say, hey, well, that was my art first. Why can I get it? Like,
exactly.
That's yours no more.
Yeah, I mean, only reason why I didn't
hold it enough to have that value.
Exactly. The only reason why I didn't use that is because I don't really think they bought. Like some people say that they leased the land. Some people say all that kind of stuff. I don't know. It's very complicated. Yeah.
Like I remember, I think it's sort of, I think it was Manhattan or something like that.
Yeah, they say that.
Americans owned it, but they sold it for like something crazy, like $10 or something.
Yeah, they said they leased it. I feel like they apparently a lot of times what people do is they like what happens is that you go to people who don't sell land and say, how much would you sell this land for? And they probably
they don't have that idea.
Exactly. They probably thought you meant how much would I like rent the land to you for? And and then it's like, yeah, well, I'll rent it for $10, sure. You could use the land, and they were like, sure, we'll give you something for it, huh?
Yeah. So, I don't know if I go this area, but like when we talk about enslavement of Africans, it wasn't necessarily, at least from things I've read, it wasn't that you were necessarily selling another one, but it's like, oh yeah, they'll work for you for like this amount of time, and that's it.
Yeah, at
They're
least,
not giving you
yeah.
pure ownership.
Plus, it was like, yeah, we're just giving you a boat ride, you know. You're like, a boat ride, yeah, I don't mind a
It
boat
wasn't
ride.
that idea. It was like you were gonna be like
Okay.
doing what you were doing. Like it
Yeah.
wasn't like that. That makes sense.
Yeah, no, yeah, it was a lease thing. Yeah, it was like, yeah, it was a lease. Like, yeah, it's, yeah, you weren't definitely owning people and abusing them. That wasn't the case, no. Or you didn't have any imagination that people would do that. That's like, it's a horrible
The
thing.
concept of that was foreign to you. Like, why would you even do that? Why would you
Yeah, exactly. That's a horrible thing. Nobody was like, yeah, sure, I'd let you abuse this person for stealing, for stealing a side mirror, right? Throwback. He's doing a throwback. All right. To this day. No, I'm joking. All right. Yeah. All right. So by penetrating his jab, whatever. Oh no. The reason why I brought that up though is just to say that there are African people who say, our diamonds, our land, our diamonds, our coltan, our this, our that, and it's like at the end of the day, it's like, was it like for instance, if you see how they mine coltan, yeah, it's like if they.
We use our jails for currency. We ain't even care about none of that.
Yeah, it's like if you look at how they mine coltan, it's like it's all the way in the middle of nowhere. It's all in the middle of nowhere. You gotta go all like I want to say 300 feet into the earth. It's
Lithium, all those.
yeah. You got to go down, and it's hard to breathe. Like a lot of people weren't really. Like, it's not just everybody's coltan. If there was somebody who opened to own that mountain, I don't know. But yeah, exactly. It'd be the chief. But if the chief says, yeah, it's not you or me. Like, it's not odd. Like it's possible that it wasn't everybody that has a claim to the wealth of the coltan. And at the end of the day, it's coltan is like dirt. Like if you look at what it looks like, it's not that impressive. The only
You have to refine it.
yeah, exactly. You have to refine it. Yeah, but here's the thing. It becomes a superconductor. You get what I'm saying? You don't have any use for a superconductor if you're living next to a mountain. You know what I mean? Like, there's not really, like, there's nothing you're doing with it. Like, you weren't, like, it wasn't of any value to you. It's only of value in this modern economy with this technological.
Big pot or big festival,
You said what? You mean eat it?
A big pot. A big pot, to make a bunch of food real fast. I don't know.
Nah, it's an electrical current. I don't know. Electrical conductor. Man, what are you talking about? Like, you talking about? Like, what are you even talking about? But that's a realistic thing. It's like, yo, this thing has some electrical current. Like, it has some electrical. We don't. Maybe for lightning. You know what I'm saying? Like, maybe it'd be good for like a lightning rod, but that's about it. Like it's.
What you gonna do with a random lightning rod in your back pocket?
That's what I'm saying. Like it's good for Pentium processors. Like from computer processors. Like for microchips. It's great for microchips. Yeah, but like if you want an economy without any microchips, like what are you gonna do with coltan? You know what I mean? Like you don't deal anyway. But anyway, the colonized world.
Watch out, we got vibranium on our hands.
Oh yeah, vibranium, right? All right, that's used for everything though. Anyway, the colonized world. I want to go there, man. I want to go to Wakanda. I know it's there. I'm joking. All right, the colonized world. You said what?
You're building Wakanda, remember?
Oh yeah. Well, all right. Well, shout out to. Well, I'm not gonna say her name, right? Because that's another powerful woman, right? All right. So the colonized world.
She's good people.
Yeah, I know. The colonized world is a world divided in two. The dividing line. Okay, so this is important. The dividing line, the border, is represented by the barracks and the police station. In the colonies, the official, legitimate agent, the spokesperson for the colonizer and the regime of the oppression is this police officer or the soldier. So basically, the border between the colonized and the colonizers is the police officer, right? Now, here's where it gets interesting. Instead of talking about the colony, he's also going to talk about the capitalist countries, the capitalist societies, and that's like going to be your America in a sense. But this is pretty much the America for white folk, right? But he says, in capitalist societies, education, whether secular or religious, the teaching of moral reflexes handed down from father to son, the exemplary integrity of workers decorated after 50 years of loyal and faithful service, the fostering of love for harmony and wisdom, those aesthetic forms of respect for the status quo instill in the exploited a mood of submission and inhibition, which considerably eases the task of the agents of law and order. So you say in capitalist countries, you have education, you have fathers teaching their children, obey and behave. Exemplary, you get
I
medals.
won't say it's just a capitalist nation, though.
No, 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 no. His point right here is that the reason why there's not like the reason why there's a reduced police presence in capitalist countries is because of these things.
Okay,
Yeah,
I hear you.
but like he's also going to say that the like they don't have that in the colony. So in the colony, you just have soldiers everywhere. Like think of Palestine, pretty much. Like that's a good example of a colony. All right. In capitalist countries, a multitude of sermonizers, counselors, and confusion mongers. That's your FBA, ADOS, right? All right. Intervene between the exploited and the authorities.
Shots fired.
Shots fired. All right. In
DC has entered the chat.
in colonial regions, however, the proximity and frequent direct intervention by the police and military ensure the colonized are kept under close scrutiny and contained by rifle butts and napalm. So he's like, in colonial regimes, you have constant police and military. So you got to think about the hood, though. The hood is like a good example of a colony in America, where you like when you go to the if you step out of the hood, you like barely see any police. Maybe they're running a red light, maybe they're sitting on a corner. If you go to the hood, it's like you got so many police every damn direction. Just like it's like a police state. And that's what colonies are. They're basically police states. So he says, we have seen how the government agents use a language of pure violence. The agent does not alleviate the oppression or mass domination. He displays and demonstrates them with the clear conscience of the law enforcer and brings violence into the homes and minds of a colonized subject. So again, he's distinguishing between the police state and, just the state that, a lot of people find themselves in when they're not in police states. And that is, with a reduced police presence. So you might actually see that in African countries that, even though we call them neo-colonies, they're kind of just mimicking what the capitalist countries are doing in the sense of they have a reduced police presence. But even then, actually we could use Nigeria again. Like Nigeria had that problem. Yeah, that problem with SARS, right? So there was just like this huge police force that was just abusing people in Nigeria. And that was something that people were going against. And so if Fanon were to see that, he might say the only way to get rid of that would be through violence, But of course, like how effective is another question, obviously. So the native sector is not complementary to the...
That's thin line between that and a civil war.
Yeah, exactly. That's violence, right? The native sector is not complementary to the European sector. The two confront each other, but not in the service of a higher unity. Governed by a purely Aristotelian logic, right? Okay. They follow the dictates of mutual exclusion. There is no conciliation possible. One of them is superfluous. So he's saying one of them is superfluous, right? The colonist sector is a sector built to last, all stone and steel. It's a sector of lights and paved roads where the trash cans constantly overflow with strange and wonderful garbage, undreamed of leftovers. The colonists' feet can never be glimpsed except perhaps in the sea, but then you can never get close enough. They are protected by solid shoes in a sector where the streets are clean and smooth, without a pothole, without a stone. The colonist sector is a sated, sluggish sector. Its belly is permanently full of good things. The colonist sector is a white folk sector, a sector of foreigners. So this is also goes back to your original question of why would somebody... Yeah, no. That's how colonies are. Yeah, it's like why would somebody like colonialism? Because you have the paved roads, you have trash cans that like they throw away things that are better than what you get outside of the colony. Like they throw away phones. They throw away tablets. Not obviously not in these days, but back in those days maybe. Yeah.
Let's throw away an iPad. What are you doing?
Yeah, right. In the future, I mean, like if you're in like 1600 and you throw away iPads, like you had some good shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, what did you have? Like, what did you? No, but like they throw away like shower heads. I don't know. They throw away lamps and all that kind of stuff. Like better things that you would get than if you were just like in like wherever you were, right? So he's going to point out the colonized sector. So this is the colonized sector. The colonized sector, or at least the native quarters, the shanty town, the Medina, the reservation, is a disreputable place inhabited by disreputable people. Now you see this kind of like, you might even say this is where you see him going for a white woman. I'm going to say it, misogynist, right? But anyway,
to be honest, sometimes like the lack of self-awareness with some of these like old school thinkers, like you got talking all this and then you over here after you finish writing this chapter, you go to bed with your wife. Like,
I'm saying, well, she was like, yo, make sure you call them disreputable. Watch them.
what you think about this order?
It's like, well, she's like, I don't know, that's having a too strong word. No, they're garbage. They're disreputable. You know, I ain't never seen that word used for nobody white. Anyway, all right, you are born anywhere. And so he says, look, you know, a disreputable place inhabited by disreputable people. You are born anywhere, anyhow. You die anywhere from anything. It's a world with no space. People are piled one on top of the others. The shacks squeezed tightly together. The colonized sector is a famished sector, hungry for bread, meat, shoes, coal, and light. The colonized sector is a sector that crouches and cowers, a sector on its knees, a sector that is prostrate. It is a sector of N-words, a sector of towel heads. I should have censored that too, right? Anyway, the gaze that the colonized subject casts at the colonist sector is a look of lust, a look of envy. He's talking about himself right here. Dreams of possession, every type of possession, of sitting at the colonist table, of sleeping in his bed, preferably with his wife. Damn, my dude, yo, he was letting you know. Anyway, all right. The colonized man is an envious man. The colonist is aware of this as he catches the furtive glance and, constantly on his guard, realizes bitterly that they want to take our place. And it's true. There is not one colonized subject who at least once a day does not dream of taking the place of the colonist. So this is where I was reading. This is where I stopped reading with my son. I was like, damn, this is deep. I should read it online. Anyway. But yeah, you see, like, I mean, I don't really think about replacing the colonists. But because I'm not really in that sort of impoverished, colonized, situation. Yeah, I mean, but this is what Fanon aspired to do, and he did it. He slept with the white man's wife.
He tried.
Well, yeah, he slept with a white man's wife. He made a white woman his wife. So like shit, But like that's what it is. It's like, but again, we have to be realistic. You set up a colony in order to extract gold, and you want to, and then you have a native population of Africans near you. Do you want them in the same town? Do you want them right next to you? Do you want them competing fairly with you? No. You want to get gold to the English crown because the English crown is going to give you, pounds or whatever, right? And the English crown wants to hoard gold so she could flex on America or whatever. Some geopolitical situation is going on. She could buy ships, she could buy this, she could do all sorts of stuff, right? She can get, she can do a whole bunch of stuff with gold, right? You can't necessarily do much with gold, but except for give it to the British, who can then give you pounds. But then you have this native population there, right? And they're just breeding and they're just, living their best life, but you want them digging the gold or whatever. So do you set them up in a nice community with nice pay, or do you set them up in a crappy community with crappy pay, And that's what happens. And now you do this and you have this sort of jealousy, this sort of look of lust, this sort of, I want to be you, I want to take your place. And of course, but if you do take the place, if England doesn't want you to take its place because there's going to be some among you who are like, hey, we should have this goal for ourselves for some reason, right? But there's also going to be some among you who are like, hey, I can give you gold to England. And so England says, wait, you can give us gold too? Okay, we'll support you. And that's what happens. This is the neocolonialism that we tend to complain about. But it bears from this idea that now you have black people living together in close quarters, and they are not setting up an equivalent or comparable sector. They don't have bread, meat, shoes, coal, light. Now, it's possible because white folk are getting all of it for themselves, right? So now what they would want is they would want to get into the position of the colonizer, but you still can't have everybody in that position. Now, socialism kind of says, well, yeah, you can. But it's not realistic. The way how this community is set up is that you're going to still have that shanty town, even if Africans now occupy the colonizers' sector, And so again, but this is like human organization, and it really would take some deep thinking, some deep reflection, some deep planning to change this circumstance of a famished sector and a well-to-do sector. It will take some, but that planning never happened, because what was behind the scenes of, oh yeah, we're sending gold to England for pounds. That was what ran the whole colonial structure. And if you sever that relationship, right, then suddenly everything collapses. Now the colonizer section will also be like the colonized sector. And who would want that? Anyway. All right, so let's keep going. So so they want to take our place. And again, if you take your place, you're going to turn and so forth. So that's where I stopped with my son. So I'm going to keep going. Yeah, sure. I thought I'd be a lot quicker than this. But anyway, so the compartmentalized world, this world divided in two, is inhabited by different species. The singularity of the colonial context lies in the fact that economic reality, inequality, and enormous disparities in lifestyle never managed to match the human reality. Looking at the immediacies of the colonial context, it is clear that what divides this world is first and foremost what species, what race one belongs to. In the colonies, the economic infrastructure is also a superstructure. The cause is effect. You are rich because you are white because you are rich. This is why a Marxist analysis should always be slightly stretched when it comes to addressing the colonial issue. It is not just a concept of the pre-capitalist society, so effectively studied by Marx, which needs to be re-examined here. The serf is essentially different from the knight, but a reference to divine right is needed to justify the difference in status. In the colonies, the foreigner imposed himself using his cannons and machines. Despite the success of his pacification, in spite of his appropriation, the colonist always remains a foreigner. It is not the factories, the estate, or the bank account which primarily characterizes the ruling class. The ruling species is first and foremost the outsider from elsewhere, different from the indigenous population, the others. So again, this is where there's like this discordance, I'm doing something that's unusual in the black community, and that is that I'm looking at it from both sides. I'm not just looking at it from the black side and saying, well, they're just foreigners in Ghana, because they're foreigners in Ghana. But if you look at it from Wazungu side, you're saying, hey, you know what? I was a pioneer, an adventurous person in England. Okay, I was looking for a better opportunity for myself. I was probably just a pirate at one point, right? And I'm looking for a better opportunity, a way to redeem myself, a way to give to my family what I couldn't have given if I were a serf in England, right? I'm taking on this expedition. I'm a part of this expedition to set up a colony in Africa, right, on the coast of Africa, to get some of this gold that they're not using, right? Because gold's all over the shores and they're just walking over it. Or they're making some jewelry, fine, but I'm going to bring some of this gold back to England, and I'm going to set up something, and the people who are going to be there, the people who are already there, they are not to be a part of my colony, because I'm setting up this colony in order for me and mine to do well. So they are the foreigners, notwithstanding the fact that they're the indigenous population. So whereas, so on our side, the way how we usually look at it is say, hey, they're foreigners to our land. They came here and they exploited and they hurt us and blah, 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 right? And I'm looking at the other side where it's like, you know what? We foot the bill for this, for like all these buildings, for traveling here. We brought these cannons here. We had to manufacture these cannons. I had to buy these cannons. I had to buy this ship. I had to buy this expedition. I owe the Queen of England.
You know how much you gotta go to the cannon store. That's expensive, dog.
Yeah, but I'm sure you. I don't know. I don't really know there's a cannon store, to be honest. But like the Queen of England or whatever, or the King of England. I don't know. Who it was at the point, but at the time. But they foot the bill for this.
If you're talking about England and
transportation,
they all kind of collaborated. Okay, so
you said England and what?
Say England, Spain, all.
Yeah, but I mean, because you were building ships, and like these ships are like huge. I don't know if you ever. I mean, like ships these days are like huge. But like
they're huge, but like even back then, the ones they made for the infrastructure tools they had.
Yeah,
a big thing.
You traveled for like 3 months to get to Africa. You know what I mean? Yeah. You were on ship. You had to have all this kind of food. Like it wasn't a small task. It wasn't
Most of it, you had to have like multiple ships too, like a whole like brigade.
Yeah, you had this whole brigade. You negotiated XYZ. You did all that, and then 100 years later, you have banks. You have banks where there weren't banks. You have what else did he say? What else did he say? I think he said banks and something else. But you have all this stuff that weren't there before. Oh, factories, estates, and banks. And then now you have the people who are there saying, hey, you're a foreigner. What are you doing? This is our land. This is our stuff. You know, this is our bank. We should have the best things for the bank. We should get the best thing. And it's like, we should have the best jobs in this factory. And the white people are just looking at you like, why? You know? Like, and not even why, but like why? You know what I mean? Like from their perspective, they're just kind of confused. Yeah, exactly. Like, whose man is that? Like from their perspective, it's like, wait, I set up this factory. Like, this isn't your factory. You know what I mean? Like how is this your factory? That's what they want to know.
It makes sense.
It makes sense from their perspective. I mean, you said what?
I said either way, I don't really care what they say, but not because they're crackers. But
Oh yeah, you just gonna take their factory? It's my factory now. Exactly, it's my factory now. I don't give a, you know what I'm saying? Exactly. Shit, as soon as it's on my border, it's mine. Matter of fact, the factory in England is mine too. But that's the thing we be saying though. Real talk, we be like, yo, we made this wealth here too, and it's like, and they just like, what? But I mean, but like it's like you said, like you don't really care. I don't really care either. But it's imperative to understand why they're why they're holding on to it, because like the question is, why would they let go? You know, like why would you?
It's actually a valid point that I think a lot of people. I think part of it is like it's hard for them to understand because they really think that you are on the same level as them. You're not necessarily like maybe philosophically speaking on the same level, but like just naturally in the country we're not on the same level because they control the system, so that's why they control the narrative.
Yeah, but it's like
they try to like change the laws and stuff. Okay, cool, but why? They already benefiting and winning right now.
Exactly, like you winning, man. Like it's like you winning.
How's that gonna help me?
It's like imagine if white people came along and said, well, we gotta like you in the basketball game. It's like, well, we gotta put the hoop 5 feet, shorter. It's like, why? You know what I'm saying? Like all the black folk gonna be like, we already winning right now. Why would we put it? Why we make it 5 feet?
I got 30 per game. What's the point?
Exactly. What's the point of me putting it like why would I change the rules when I'm winning? Like it don't make no sense.
Wilt Chamberlain a lot. They had to change a lot of rules because Wilt was just dominating.
Oh yeah, exactly. They change rules if you winning. That's what they do. That's what you're supposed to. That's what you're supposed to do. If like somebody else is winning. Exactly, somebody else winning, like shit. Then you gotta change the rules. But like, if you winning, you gonna change the rules? Nah, that's stupid.
Then what's the point?
That's stupid.
I understand from that view. Like anybody in general, like if this is my house, I'm doing well. So hey, well, I'm broke, so I gotta live with you. Why? I don't know you.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm broke, so I'm entitled to half your wealth. Yeah, okay, bro. Have a nice day with that. Have a nice day with that right there. Anyway, sorry. So let's see. The violence which governed the ordering of the colonial world, which tirelessly. Oh, you're gonna dip? All right, yeah. But yeah, it's not a bad book. What do you think about the book, man?
No, it sounds cool. I think part of what you're doing with it is beneficial because I think people. Because one thing, none of us we don't want to listen to no crap or talk about their perspective because like who cares? We know it, we live it, Mm-hmm. But also bringing in that perspective actually makes it. It brings more reasoning into their nature and how they operate. It is how anybody naturally would operate when they're trying to work for their own vested interests. So it makes sense.
Yeah. My bad. I didn't even know. This brother said, Bit of Medicine said I had to put up the volume for the Discord, so I just put you up. Maybe people even heard you. But I put it up.
The whole time? What?
I'm saying, right? It was just me and you, but like people just heard me pausing. They're like, yo, why you keep pausing? Nah. I put you up though. But you about to dip anyway, so it's all good.
I might be back. Maybe. Depends on when. I don't know. How long you gonna do this?
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm only halfway through. I thought I was. But I mean, I'll probably go a little faster. But yeah, I think this is a good book. I think it's so far it's a good. And yeah, man, appreciate you stopping by. And of course, anybody else wanna drop in, just let me know. Not let me know, just drop in.
Right.
But all right, man, deuces. All right, so that was Machiavelli, guys. Everybody, appreciate that, brother. So, the violence which governed the ordering of the colonial world, which tirelessly punctuated the destruction of the indigenous social fabric and demolished unchecked the systems of reference of the country's economy, lifestyles, and modes of dress. This same violence will be vindicated and appropriated when, taking history into their own hand, the colonized swarm into the forbidden cities. To blow the colonial world to smithereens is henceforth a clear image within the grasp and imagination of every colonized subject. To dislocate the colonial world does not mean that once the borders have been eliminated, there will be a right of way between the two sectors. To destroy the colonial world means nothing less than demolishing the colonist sector, burying it deep within the earth, or banishing it from the territory. So, again, one of the things that we have to realize now is that basically you have this population, and this is where it becomes complicated, I want to say. You have this population that's looking at the colonizer's sector, right, with envy, like, I want to take that place. But the correct response of the colonized would be to destroy the colonizer's sector completely. So that even though the colonized now have an experience, a lot of them have an experience where they have nothing, they have, and this is actually really one of the complicated psychological problems of African people in general, and that is how your class kind of dictates your perspective to things. So one of the things you're going to pick up on is that a lot of times the Marxists are going to be the bourgeoisie and the petty bourgeoisie. They're going to be the well-to-do people. It's not going to be the proletariat. The proletariat are going to want better pay and better services, and then the petty bourgeoisie are going to try to convince the proletariat, no, you don't want better pay, you don't want better pay, you don't want better working conditions. What you want is to take control of the factories or something, and the proletariat don't have any ambition for that, and it's the same with regards to this colonized section. You're in a shanty town, you want to go into the rich sector, okay? You're a poor black person, you want to fly an airplane. That was Native Son. That was the beginning of Native Son. You do not want to destroy all airplanes. You don't want to destroy the rich section because you know that the shanty town is all that awaits you, and so one of the things is that, so now this brother, he's writing a whole book. He's probably not in a shanty town. More than likely he's, married to this white woman already, and he's in the colonized section, the colonizer section. Okay, so he's writing from a class perspective of, well, the way to end this colonization is to destroy the colonized section that he's comfortably already in, right? Whereas, and then he's looking, and so he's trying to convince the people in the colonized section, that in the shanty towns that are in, like living on top of garbage or something, right? He's saying, or like scavenging in garbage for something valuable to sell, right? He's saying they should look to destroy the colonizer section, and because they don't really understand decolonization. And it's really that sort of aspect of psychology that really speaks to, one of the things that happens inside of African circles, where a lot of times it's almost always the well-to-do people who are the most or who are nominally the most politically imaginative, in fact, I remember seeing like there's countless examples of people who are pretty well-to-do, and myself included, who are just politically, who just have this large political imagination that's disconnected from the truly colonized, the truly impoverished, the truly wretched of the earth. Right? He said it. Okay. Anyway. So let's see. To dislocate the colonial world does not mean once the border has been eliminated. So he says, you got to demolish everything. So it says challenging the colonial world is not a rational confrontation of viewpoints. It is not a discourse on the universal, but the impassioned claim by the colonized that their world is fundamentally different. The colonial world is a Manichaean world. The colonist is not content with physically limiting the space of the colonized, i.e. with the help of the agents of law and order. As if to illustrate the totalitarian nature of colonial exploitation, the colonist turns the colonized into a kind of quintessence of evil. Colonized society is not merely portrayed as a society without values. The colonist is not content with stating that the colonized world has lost its values, or worse, never possessed any. The native is declared impervious to ethics, representing not only the absence of values, but also the negation of values. He is, dare we say it, the enemy of values. In other words, absolute evil, a corrosive element, destroying everything within his reach, a corrupting element, destroying anything with involving aesthetics or morals, an agent of malevolent power, an unconscious, an incurable instrument of blind forces. A Monsieur Mayer could say in all seriousness in the French National Assembly that we should not let the Republic be defiled by the penetration of Algerian people. Values are, in fact, irreversibly poisoned and infected as soon as they come into contact with the colonized. The customs of the colonized, their traditions, their myths, especially their myths, are the very mark of their indigence and innate depravity. That is why we should place DDT, which destroys parasites, carriers of diseases, on the same level as Christianity, which roots out heresy, natural impulses, and evil. The decline of yellow fever, or DDT, which destroys parasites, the decline of yellow fever and the advances made by evangelizing forms parts of the same balance sheet, but triumphant reports by the mission, in fact, tell us how deep the seeds of alienation have been sown among the colonized. I'm talking of Christianity, and this should come as no surprise to anybody. The church in the colonies is the white man's church, a foreigner's church. It does not call the colonized to the ways of God, but to the ways of the white man, to the ways of the master, the ways of the oppressor. As we know in this story, many are called, but few are chosen. So this is actually pretty interesting. This is an interesting paragraph. I was kind of long. I should have stopped a little bit. But you see, again, you want to look at it from both perspectives. You know, you know, the white man comes to your country or whatever, and he sets up shop, and then he's like, "Oh, you're evil, and you're not good. You're against our order. You're against our situation. You're against our system. We have to be away from you." Right? Again, this has a psychological effect for the colonizers, right? Because what the colonizers are doing, because like here's the thing, if you see somebody suffering, let's say you have some sort of humanity, right? And I'm not saying Wazungu does, but let's say Wazungu did, right? And they have this sort of humanity. You do not want your people treating the colonized well. You don't want them extending their humanity to the colonized, because the colonized will ruin your nation. Will ruin your colony. Will ruin your colonial setup. You have a contract with England to get gold. You're not digging the gold, the colonized are getting the gold, right? You have a contract with England to get gold so that you can get pounds, and with pounds you can build up estates in England and yada, 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 right? It's a good thing for you, right? What can upset it, what can unsettle it, is this idea that if the natives, if the colonized destroy the colony, your wealth is gone. You understand? Your wealth is gone. Everything that you've built up, you know, you built that hospital. If they come and they destroy that hospital, it's gone. If they come and they're in the hospital, it's gone. If you cannot have your separate existence from them, right? Then everything that you've built will be destroyed by them, because they don't want you here. They don't. There's nothing about, like, the colonized do not want the colonists there. If anything, they like what the colonists brought. They don't like the colonists having it. Okay? So you have to make them evil. Because if you do not make them evil, if you make them good, if you make them unparalleled, if you make them equivalent, if you say, hey, you know what, they just have a different belief system than us, right? They're coming inside, right? They're allowed in. The gates are open for them. They'll destroy everything. That's why the white boy says, hey, look, they are a corrosive element, destroying everything within its reach. Why? Because that's what you would do. You know, and we might say, hey, why do they make it so evil? Why do they make our spiritual system so bad? Because they're being accurate. It's what you're supposed to say. And so here he has Christianity. He says Christianity roots out the heresy, natural impulses, the evil. Christianity is promoting the white man's way, and that's what it is. Again, I spoke about this yesterday. So if anybody knows, you can check out the pro-black perspective. I'm reading the Book of Power as well as Wretched of the Earth. So, but in the Book of Power, we talked about, I was talking to this Christian lady, and this Christian lady was like, yeah, she reads the Bible every day, listens to gospel music every day. She and she's not racial. She doesn't, discriminate. She believes in she believes in the divinity of the white man. Okay? That's what Christianity is about. It's about white man has divinity. It has to be like, there's no way around. All right, so let me say it this way. We go to the Yoruba, right? If you follow the Yoruba pantheon, right? The Ifa or whatever, right? There are no white divinities. No European divinities. All the divinities are African people. All of the Babalawos are African people. If anybody is connected to the divine in the spiritual world, it is African people. Okay? Now, what happens when you accept Christianity? When you accept Christianity, you realize that anybody could be divine, including white people. Not only including white people, but mostly white people. Because if you look at the image of the Christ as portrayed in this as portrayed by these white people, it is a white man. So a white man is the son of a deity in this imaginative religion. And what happens is now it says Raskas says, he painted his he's talking about the famous painting, I can't remember the guy's name, but the lyric goes, he painted his aunt, uncle, and nephew subconsciously that affects you. It makes you put white people closer to God. You understand? But it's not just that image. It's the fact that you have these pastors, these white people coming into your land and saying, here's the divine word that was revealed to me. So now all of a sudden divinity and divine words and those are revealed to white people in the white man's language, written down for the white man and not written down for you. You understand? So that's really what it comes to. Christianity should be no surprise. Yeah. Christianity is really the white man's religion. And I mean, I feel like I should have stopped earlier so I could have explained that better. So I'm going to try to not read through like that, but even so, like, that's what it is. So sometimes the Manichaeism, and by the way, he has a footnote where he says, we have demonstrated in Black Skin, White Mask the mechanism of the Manichaean world, but I don't know what that is. So, I mean, I wish I could explain everything to you, but I guess I can't. All right. Sometimes this Manichaeism reaches this logical conclusion and dehumanizes the colonial subject. Manichaeism reaches this logical conclusion and dehumanizes the colonial subject. In plain talk, he is reduced to the state of an animal, and consequently, when the colonist speaks of the colonized, he uses zoological terms. Allusions is more made to the slithery movement of the yellow race, the odors from the native quarters, to the hordes, the stink, the swarming, the seething, and the gesticulations. In his endeavors at description and finding the right word, the colonist refers constantly to the bestiary. The European seldom has a problem with figures of speech, but the colonized, who immediately grasp the intention of the colonists and the exact case being made against them, know instantly what he is thinking. This explosive population growth, those hysterical masses, those blank faces, those shapeless, obese bodies, this headless, tailless cohort, these children who seem not to belong to anyone, this indolence sprawling under the sun, this vegetating existence, all this is part of the colonial vocabulary. So basically he's saying that the way how they describe colonized people is, more along with the animals say. And again, this is very, very, very important. It's important. It's important for if you're trying to maintain the colony, Here's a question, right, that people are sometimes asked. Let's say, let's say we go back to South Africa, 1985 or whatever, right? You have white people there, or you have black people there, right? And so you say to yourself, what do we do about the white people? That's the question you ask. What are we going to do what are we going to do about the white people? What are we going to do, blah, blah? We're going to allow it to stay. They're going to allow it to go, blah, blah. And see, when you do that, you humanize the white people. And you make it so that, yeah, you have to consider their psychological, sociological, and ecological needs. Okay? Now you don't say the same thing about cows. You don't ask what are we going to do about the cows, in South Africa, or what are we going to do about the wolves in South Africa, or what are we going to do about the gazelle in South? Like, you don't ask that because they're animals, right? And so you don't have to factor that in inside decision making. You don't have to factor that in inside of the administration because no one cares. That's a dumb question. Now, if you, however, animalized white people, right? And you said, hey, look, what we're going to do is we're going to turn this over to the black folk and blah, 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 blah. We're going to turn this over to our people, the South Africans, blah, 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 whatever, right? You do that and you say, well, yeah, the historical masses of white folk might complain, or their blank faces, blah, 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 their shapeless, obese bodies, their terrible odor, blah, blah. You doing that, you don't have to. Like, now it comes into the art of rhetoric, right? You don't have to do anything for them. You don't have to regard their psychological, sociological, or ecological needs because they're just like the animals. And that's where that purpose is in this colonial project. It makes it so that you can get away with like your form of administration that benefits you totally, because you don't even regard the hysterical masses. They have an explosive population growth. You're looking at them like they're just like almost like they're like, the comparison made is monkeys, right? But you look at them like a monkey population where you don't really care. You're just like, yeah, monkeys kind of look like us. They look different. They kind of look like us, but they're not a part of our society. They're not a part of our community. They're not a part of our colony. Colony is for us, not for the apes, And of course, humans are technically genetically related to apes, like all of us. But again, so again, that kind of justifies why you would even go about that perspective. It's only this, and that's why I say humanize and human and all that kind of stuff. But that's you understand that. There's a reason for the colonial vocabulary, and that's really what it comes to. So General de Gaulle speaks of yellow multitudes and Monsieur Marillac of the black, brown, and yellow hordes that will soon invade our shores. The colonized know all that and roar with laughter every time they hear themselves called an animal by the other, for they know they are not animals. At the very moment when they discover their humanity, they begin to sharpen their weapons to secure its victory. So again, what's interesting is it reminds me of this passage in what's his name? Up from Slavery by I don't know why I'm not good at names, but he's explaining the situation that was like one of the saddest moments of his life, where this black man is saying, "Oh, there were 3 of us that were traded. It was 4 of us that were traded. Me, my brother, and 2 donkeys." And so Booker T. Washington took it away that this black person didn't even see himself as a human, or didn't even see himself separate from animals. He was so dehumanized that he saw this trade. Like when somebody was asking him, how many of you came here? He was like, oh, it's just me, this other person, and 2 donkeys. Like him and the animals were on the same level. So it's but that's a dehumanization that was there. So I mean, again, you kind of see the class of Fanon here, where he's like, yeah, we don't believe we're animals, but yeah, white people can, like, it could become pretty severe, especially if they're controlling the education. It could become pretty severe. A lot of people did think that they were jumping from trees, or a lot of people think that people in Africa are jumping from trees and all that kind of stuff. But let's keep going. As soon as the colonized begin to strain at the leash and to pose a threat to the colonists, they are assigned a series of good souls who in the symposium of culture spells out the specificity and richness of Western values. But every time the issue of Western values crops up, the colonized grows tense and their muscles seize up. During the period of decolonization, the colonized are called upon to be reasonable. They are offered rock-solid values. They are told in great detail that decolonization should not mean regression, that they must rely on values which have proved to be reliable and worthwhile. Now it's so, and see, this is actually what it is. So again, like there are values, like for instance, like we know this. It's like, oh yeah, or some of it's artificial, but like here's an artificial one. It's like, oh, there's no more cannibalism. There's no more this. There's no more that. But now, of course, you could also go into infrastructure. Well, now we have banks. Now we have, or now they have banks. Now they have, water filtration. Now they have internet. Now they have satellites. And it's like, and this is one of the issues in regards to our lack of leadership, is the fact that every one of us, when we don't have leadership, can form an opinion on to what degree we want to keep things from the West and to what degree we don't. Because again, like for instance, one of the things that we're going to need in order to, he talks about machetes, but one of the things we're going to need in regards to destroying this infrastructure is Western weaponry. So it's not like you're going to give up. It's not like you really realistically can forsake everything of the West. And let's say you do say, oh, well, yeah, we should forsake Western weaponry too. Well, then you're going to lose. And that's what it is. And even if you say, hey, let's forsake water filtration, then you might not have the morale on your side. So there's a lot that's going on in regards to this decolonization and the totality that's being demanded here, right? Which rely on values, yeah. So, and that's why people know this, why people know that they can do that. And this is one of the issues, one of the problems that even Dessalines faced. If you, like I said, you go check out the Book of Power and you'll see Dessalines is talking about the same thing. He's like, we got rid of, like, we say that we're free of Wazungu, right? We're free of the Frenchmen, but they still walk among us. You know what I mean? Like we're really been deceived by their words and their eloquence. And this is Dessalines in like 17 something or 1801 or whatever, right? 100 years before this, 150 years before Franz Fanon. But it's just something that it's you expect it, Now it so happens, and Haiti was a colony, obviously. So now it so happens that when the colonized hear a speech on Western culture, and actually I want to say this about Haiti being a colony. It's a colony where the black people were not indigenous. You understand? But of course they also couldn't leave. You understand? So they took over the country. And so that's an actual instance of decolonization where you had to kill and you had to use violence to get it, but you also kept some things going. Some people would say that Dessalines might have ran the plantations. It might have continued the plantation system, just like what I told you. So you might be like, hey, we're fighting against plantations, but you realize that, well, you still need to farm the food. And you have this huge population, and how are you going to feed yourself, so on and so forth? Or even if you have cash crops, it's not as simple as, okay, well, now we're all going to live in peace, and we're not going to need to work anymore. We're not going to have to work daily. We're not going to, it's not that simple. Toussaint the same, where I think he really legit said, yeah, you're going to continue being slaves. But again, it's a really complicated question. I want people to grasp that. Not too many people are going to grasp it, but I want you to grasp it. All right. Here's the thing. What's funny is I thought this was going to be 30 minutes. I thought it was going to be 30 minutes, but it's not. So KW Don 7's here. Shout out to KW Don 7. He says, you do with Urugu and Azania the same thing you do when you have an infestation of roaches. Sure, I feel you, but I never had an infestation of roaches, so I don't know. I'm joking. No, I feel you. That's truth. Bit of medicine says Booker T. Yeah, that's Booker T. Washington. But yeah, if you have an infestation of roaches, you get rid of. But see, there's a difference between roaches. I want to say this: there's a difference between roaches and Urugu, right? Urugu set up a system that you are trying to take over. Okay, and that system supported a population much too big for many other systems, So if you suddenly have like 1 million people, right? You can't say, okay, well, we're going to go back to hunter gathering, because hunter gatherers hunter gathering is not an economy that can support millions of people, Even the farming thing might not necessarily be the case if you don't have that many farmers, So that's one of the problems. So it's like, yeah, you get rid of Wazungu, but then how much of what Wazungu left do you get rid of? And that was really That's another thing altogether. But yeah, definitely the roach infestation is an accurate point. Like really, realistically speaking, Wazungu is the problem, but he created these other problems, which is he creates this colony that supports a whole different. Like basically, you have a whole population of people in a shanty town that cannot feed themselves. And now what do you do when you're in the leadership position? How do you feed these people? How do you give them employment? Like where do you put them? Where do you place them? There's this huge population. What do you do with them? Right? Do you just let them die? No. So now you have to give them land, but who are they? How do you disperse land to them? You might be like, well, you should give them their ancestral land. You don't know where their ancestral land is. They were taken from the land. Or their ancestral land is now being used. You don't know, though. They don't know. They were born in rubbish. They were born in garbage. What do you do with them now? And this is like you as a leader, you as the administrator. How do you solve this problem? Because you have an excess population. That's one of the things that I didn't forget to go over. But he says one of these populations is superfluous. The colonizer is not the superfluous population. The colonized is, right? Now you have a superfluous population with enough food to feed the colonizer section, right? And then you get rid of the colonizer, and some people move into the colonizer section, or even you get rid of the colonizer sector. Now what do you do with all these people with nothing? How do you get rid of all the garbage that was piled up? Because a lot of times, the shanty towns are formed around garbage, like literally, right? How do you move all that garbage? Who do you hire for that? There's a lot going on. Obviously everybody has to get out, I guess. I don't know, but how do you do that? How do you it's complicated, And then of course, like you don't have, and then here's the thing too. It's like, you might be like, well, yeah, let's just have direction. Let's just tell everybody to do X, Y, Z. You in what army? You understand? Why are people listening to you? Who are you? Now you're using force against them. And now when you use, you're saying, hey, look, you got to go to, we're going to take you to this other part. I don't want to go there. Well, you're going to have to go there because it's not going to, and then suddenly you're arresting people. You're setting up rules. You're setting up laws. The rules and laws. Sorry, you're like, it's complicated. It's not straightforward. And it's going to take really good minds, really good thinkers to really, really navigate that kind of space. But all right, we're going to keep going. Now this so happens that the colonized hear a speech. Oh yeah, so might be here. Wait, let's see. They are offered rock solid values. Yeah, rock solid values. Now it so happens that when the colonized hear a speech on Western culture, they draw their machetes, or at least check to see they are close to hand. The primacy of white values is stated with such violence. The victorious confrontation of these values with the lifestyle and beliefs of the colonized is so impregnated with aggressiveness that as a countermeasure, the colonized rightly make a mockery of them whenever they are mentioned. In the colonial context, the colonists only quits undermining the colonized once the latter have proclaimed loud and clear that white values reign supreme. Okay, wait a second. Colonial context, the colonists only quits undermining the colonized once the latter have proclaimed loud and clear that white values reign supreme. So, yeah, exactly. So white people are only going to not undermine you when you are a white value advocate. And a lot of people are. Like they don't mock Candace Owens. They say, yeah, Candace Owens, go for it. They don't mock even Tariq Nasheed. I mean, they kind of mock him, but it's a part of the game. It's part of the hustle, whatever, right? They mock you if you don't value colonized, white values, Because, again, the white values is what's holding these white people in power. Because as long as you have black people who are for white values and black people who are against it, you're going to have black people fighting each other. You know what I mean? Fighting each other for these white people to stay in power. Because I saw this, in fact, this was today. I saw somebody say the black bourgeoisie are the obstacle for black liberation. And again, there's no such thing as black liberation. But the whole point is that now you have a black population who are in a colonial situation. And their whole objective is to say, no. We oppose the black bourgeoisie too. Right? But it's just a focus on another black population. Now, maybe you could say the black bourgeoisie have white values. Maybe you could say one and so forth. Who knows? But the point being that it's a distraction in the sense of Now you have black people arguing back and forth on this black element, ignoring the fact that the whole system is about a white colonies. About the foreigners colonizing Africa or colonizing your land or your people, right? So anyway, in the period of decolonization, the colonized masses thumbs their noses at their very values, showers them with insults, and vomits them up. So he's like real decolonization thumbs their nose, vomits at the thought of the other people's values. But of course, here's the issue. Franz Fanon's with a white woman. So it's just like, what? All right. Such an occurrence. So it's just kind of like rhetoric at this point, But again, it's something you would expect from somebody of his class background, right? So such an occurrence normally goes unseen because during decolonization, certain colonized intellectuals have established in dialogue with the bourgeoisie of the colonizing country. Okay, yeah. We were talking about black bourgeoisie, right? So such an occurrence normally goes unseen because during decolonization, certain colonized intellectuals, so he thinks he's a colonized intellectual, have established a dialogue with the bourgeoisie of the colonizing country. So he's like the ruling class of the colonizing country, right? During this, the ruling class of the colony that are foreigners, right? During this period, the indigenous population is seen as a blurred mass. The few native personalities whom the colonialist bourgeoisie have chance to encounter have insufficient impact to alter their current perception and nuance their thinking. And of course, again, you have to go back to the colony being an economical concern. Like trying to change the thinking of people who are just in there for business doesn't make any sense. It's like, yeah, it doesn't like going on an emotional stance. It doesn't make any sense to a degree. But like obviously, I mean, like, unfortunately, one of the big examples is global warming. Just going to people who are doing who are impacting climate change and saying, you're destroying the planet. They're like, I don't care. I'm not going to live that long. You said it's going to be destroyed in 50 years. I don't care. Like, I'm going to be dead. Right. And that's what they say. So yeah, you really can't go to people with that emotion. But like, that's one of the issues with Franz Fanon, where he's saying, hey, look, these intellectuals are not having an impact on these people whose whole mission is to travel back and forth from Europe, take 3 months of the year to travel back and forth from Europe and get gold to bring back to their families in Europe. You know what I mean? To exchange it with the crown and get pounds to give to their family. That's their whole thinking. You coming to them and saying, hey, I'm being mistreated and, I'm really a human too. It's like, why would I care? I don't really care. My whole thing is to give money to my family at home. My wife, my children, my family is at home. What you're going through has nothing to do with me. I mean, it has something to do with me per se, but I don't care. Why don't you like, I don't know how you even got in my office, that's what it is. In a quasi-comical way, right? All right, so during the period of liberation, however, the colonialist bourgeoisie frantically seek contact with the colonized elite. See, he's like, okay, well now, while there's liberation going on, they might try to salvage the situation. It is with this elite the famous dialogue on values is established. When the colonialist bourgeoisie realized it is impossible to maintain its domination over the colonies, it decides to wage a rearguard campaign in the fields of culture, values, and technology, etc. But what we should never forget is that the immense majority of colonized people are impervious to such issues. So he's saying that when the colony begins to deteriorate, they try to salvage a relationship, and he's like, well, the majority don't care, but it's like, but again, the humans are not ran by the majority in real life, that's just a socialist myth or just a myth in general, right? Humans are really run by a minority. And so this is why the colonialists will engage with the elites, the local elites. And that's why I inform everybody to try to become a part of the local elites, right? But not in the ways of dealing with the colonialists or the bourgeoisie, but in the ways of just understanding that, there's a hierarchical structure to nearly everything that we do, and if we want to be effective. And that's like this organization generally has this hierarchical structure, and the head of the organization is what we would call the elite in this case. But what we should never forget is that the immense majority of colonies are impervious to such issues. For colonized people, the most essential value, because it is the most meaningful, is first and foremost the land. That's truth. The land which must provide bread and naturally dignity, but this dignity has nothing to do with human dignity. The colonized subject has never heard of such an ideal. All he has ever seen on his land is that he can be arrested, beaten, and starved with impunity, and no sermonizer on morals, no priest has ever stepped in to bear this blow in his place or share his bread. For the colonized to be a moralist quite plainly means silencing the arrogance of the colonist, breaking his spiral of violence, in a word, ejecting him outright from the picture. The famous dictum, which states that all men are equal, will find its illustration in the colonies only when the colonized subject states he is equal to the colonist. Taking it a step further, he is determined to fight to be more than the colonist. In fact, he has already decided to take his place. As we have seen, it is the collapse of an entire moral and material universe. The intellectual who, for his part, has adopted the abstract universal values of the colonizer is prepared to fight so that the colonist and colonizer can live in peace in a new world. But what we does not see, because precisely colonialism and all its modes of thought have seeped into him, is that the colonist is no longer interested in staying on and existing once the colonial context has disappeared. And this is what I'm saying. This is the thing that but this is what you expect. If your whole purpose is to get gold, bring it to the crown, and exchange it for pounds, right? And of course, there's more to it, sell tobacco, this kind of stuff. But just to simplify it, if that's your whole purpose, if African people take over the situation and cut the trade or diminish this sort of so forth, the Queen of England is not going to continue to finance your trips to Europe. To your trips to Africa. She's not going to continue giving you that good income you were getting when you were giving her this much gold, and so you won't even be able to afford it. You're not going to continue to be like, well, yeah, I might as well stick around and see what's going on and help these people, have a modern economy on my, on my. I'm not going to do that. Why would he? And even asking or even wanting him to do that is like a issue with regards to a lot of our people's African psychology. Because you don't want them to coexist. They're not trying to cohabit with you or coexist with you. You just happen to be there when they were trying to get this gold. Okay? Once you said, look, you no more gold for you, they say, okay, fine, I'll go on and do something else. I'll go to India. I'll go to China. I'm not committed to your land. You kick me out, that's fine. I'm gone. I'm going back to England. I'm going to try my luck there. So he's like, yeah, it's no coincidence that even before any negotiations between the Algerian government and the French government, the so-called liberal European minority has already made its position clear. It is clamoring for dual citizenship, nothing less. Oh, wait, hold on a second. Nothing less. Dual citizenship, nothing less. But, oh, yeah, so you said dual citizenship. So citizenship for in Algeria and France. Right? By sticking to the abstract, the colonist is being forced to make a very substantial leap into the unknown. Let us be honest. The colonist knows perfectly well that no jargon is a substitute for reality. Like they're not going to give up their French citizenship. If they have money still in the if the new Algerian economy could still get them some money to bring back to their family, sure, they'll stick around. But if it can't, then yeah, they'll dip. Now, here's the thing that happens to a lot of African countries, like I said, because we don't dehumanize them. We're like, we're humans too. We're blah, blah, blah. Because we don't do that, they're still well-to-do after the colonization is over. You know what I mean? Like, they're still the head of the bank. Well, we still need your banking services. Yeah, you sure do. Well, we still need your water filtrations. Yeah, you sure do. So they're still well-to-do. And so something like that. And so now later on, we're like, you go to South Africa and you're like, and they're complaining. They're like, oh, well, we're 80% of the population and we got, like they're 5% of the population and they got 90% of the land. Yeah. Cause you never took it from them. Cause you said, hey, they're humans. They can manage it. They can, so that they got it. You understand? So they have their dual citizenship. They say, yeah, this is still pretty good for us. Now, if you said, hey, look, we're taking your land, they're not going to stick around. Or they do, sure. But see, there's a difference. What white people did in America was they just killed the Native Americans. the Amerindian. I call them Amerindians because they're not really natives, but yeah. Claim for dual citizenship. By sticking to the abstract, the colonist is being forced to make the very substantial leap. Yeah. So the colonized subject thus discovers that his life, his breathing, and his heartbeat are the same as the colonist. So you see what I'm saying? He's just trying to, this is already the problem. This is already the problem. This is why, and again, I'll re-stress that, yeah, he's a misogynist, and you can see it. So the colonized subject thus discovers that his life, his breath, and his heartbeat are the same as the colonist. He discovers that the skin of a colonist is not worth more than the natives. In other words, his world receives a fundamental jolt. The colonized revolutionary new assurance stems from this. If in fact my life is worth as much as the colonist, his look can no longer strike fear into me or nail me to the spot, and his voice can no longer petrify me. I'm no longer uneasy in his presence. In reality, to hell with him. Not only does his presence no longer bother me, but I am already preparing to waylay him in such a way that soon he will have no other solution but to flee. The colonial context, as we have said, is characterized by the dichotomy it inflicts on the world. Decolonization unifies this world by a radical decision to remove its heterogeneity, by unifying it on the grounds of nation and sometimes race. To quote the biting words of Senegalese patriots on the maneuvers of their president Senghor, we ask for the Africanization of the top jobs, and all Senghor does is Africanize the Europeans. Wait, hold on a second. To quote the biting words of Senegalese patriots on the maneuvers of their president. Oh yeah, so Senghor. So Senghor is the president of Senegal, right? And he's like, the people, the patriots are saying, we ask for this Africanization of the top jobs. See what I'm saying? They want the same colonial situation but they want Africans in those positions. And Senghor, however, doesn't even know how to do that. So he just kind of Africanizes the Europeans. Again, it's really not so straightforward. I'll give you an example. Let's say, I think I mentioned Intel processors, right? Let's say you said, okay, let's say, America's a colony. Let's say, right, America's a settled colony. Native Americans somehow get assistance somehow to take over the American colony. Now no disrespect to Native Americans, right? Or Amerindians or whatever, right? No disrespect. But let's say they take over ICBM. Oh, no, not ICBM. that's a intercontinental. No, IBM. They take over IBM, right? Are you saying that you feel like the operation of IBM is going to go the same just by that? You just walk in, you take over everybody's position, you fire everybody, or you kill everybody, I guess. And then now when you're running it, everything's going to go the same as it were when white people were running it. And no, that's not realistic anywhere. That's not realistic for anything, whether it's McDonald's, whether it's IBM, whether it's, anything. It's not realistic. So you might demand, we want Native Americans or we want Africans at the top of this job, of Amazon. Amazon was the job I was really thinking of. But I was thinking of before, and I was like, that's too, maybe people think they could do that. We want Africans running Amazon, right? But how do you do that? You understand? So instead, you're going to say, okay, well, it might have to be a gradual thing. You can't just suddenly remove everybody and say, okay, now you're all African. Now put all the Africans there and it should run the same way, run smoothly. But you might have to be like, okay, well, these Europeans, okay, well, you just got to do X, Y, Z, and it's going to have to be slow. And people are going to complain about that. You see what I'm saying? They're going to say, no, we asked for something else and you gave us this. But at the same time, it's like, what is the realism of just replacing everybody at the top jobs? Were you really prepared to run those kind of jobs? And I use IBM because it's really, really complicated to make computer processors, right? Can you just grab a bunch of people to make a bunch of computer processors? Probably not. If you just put me, I'm an intelligent person, you put me into that position, probably wouldn't be of much use to you. You know what I mean? But I'm an intelligent person, or so I tell people, All right. So, all right. Meaning that the colonized can see right away if decolonization is taking place or not. The minimum demand is that the last become the first. So again, it's not too realistic. Because the last do not have any skills. Like what you want to realize is this. What I want you to pick up on. This is why I went in my own book, Book of Power. In my own book, I talk about this concept called Boko Waset Nakeru, right? And this concept basically says, you have to, like if you want, like basically the objective of any people is to have a skilled economy, okay? A skilled economy. The last do not have skills, okay? Like if you're the last, you don't have skills. And that's where a lot of the trouble comes in. Like if you go through the hood, a lot of people do not have real skills. Like maybe they have it, they don't have real skills. By skills, I mean like making computer processors, all that kind of stuff, or the surgery and all that kind of stuff. Sure, they have talent for other things, or a lot of us have talent for other things. But when we're talking about skills, we're talking about skills, right? The last do not usually have skills, okay? To make the last first, to have the top jobs, it's not realistic. You have to have an educational infrastructure for that. And if you do not, like as we said, if there were native schools and European schools, and all your people went through native schools, they don't possess the skills to run a skilled economy. And that's really where the issue is. So that's why I propose in my book, we have to establish, the rudiments for a skilled economy so that we can have these skilled economies. But, we can have those engineers, we can have those diplomats, we can have that like through educational background. But otherwise, if you just say, okay, let's kill all the engineers and then put in our own people to be the engineers, it's not going to be as effective as you think it is. You might think it's going to be effective. It might surprise you. It might surprise me, but it's not the most effective way to go about things. Like you do want to have that educational infrastructure in place, and that's really what I would advocate. But anyway, so let's go. So you can't just say the last will become first because like they don't have the like it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make it's a weird demand. It's an unrealistic demand, but it is what it is. But the colonized intellectual introduces a variation on this demand, and in fact, there seems to be no lack of motivation to fill senior positions as administrators, technicians, and experts. Wait, hold on a second. Introduces a variation on this demand. And in fact, there seems to be no lack of motivation. So he's like the colonized intellectual. So the colonized, however, equate this nepotism with acts of sabotage, and it's not unusual to hear them declare, what is the point of being independent then? So you see what he's saying? He's like the colonized intellectual introduces a variation on this demand, and in fact, there seems to be no lack of motivation to fill senior positions as administrators, technicians, and experts. I think what he's saying is that these white people, the white people who were seniors, the white people who were already like a part of the colonial situation, are now administrators, technicians, and experts. It could be the white people, or it could be the colonial intellectual. The colonized intellectual. I'm not too sure. But the point is that, yeah, he's saying that the people from the old colony, I'll say one interpretation to be people from the old colony now have good positions. The administrative technicians and experts working for that, the new nation, right? But the colonized people are going to look at that and say, what's the point of being independent if, like, it looks like nepotism. It looks like the same people that we were to chase out, that we fought for, like we fought against, these same people still have hold over us. But again, one of the reasons why, and he does call me out. He says the colonized intellectual are gonna say it. But one of the reasons is because the people who were colonized, generally speaking, cannot be the administrators, technicians, and experts. Because how are you going to be an expert if you were never doing it? You understand? How are you going to be an administrator if you were never doing it? And that's one of the issues. It's again, or if you never studied it. That's why I stress. That's one of the things that I want people to understand. Well, at least from my own literature, is that this Boko Waset Nakeru is this idea that you have to prepare your people for independence, and because we are not preparing our people for independence, like not only are people going to say, what is the point of independent? A lot of people are not even going to be for your independence because you're not even qualified to be the experts, technicians, and administrators of a new African nation because you're not even working towards it. There's a lot going on, but I'm telling you, that's a deeper thought than most people can recognize. But anyway, so wherever an authentic liberation struggle has been fought, wherever the blood of the people has been shed and the armed phase has lasted long enough to encourage the intellectuals to withdraw to their rank and file base, there is an effective ratification of the superstructure borrowed by these intellectuals from the colonialist bourgeoisie circle. It is this narcissistic In its narcissistic monologue, the colonialist bourgeoisie, by way of its academics, had implanted in the minds of the colonized that the essential values, meaning Western values, remain eternal despite all errors attributable to man. The colonized intellectual accepted the cogency of these ideas, and there in the back of his mind stood a sentinel of duty guarding the Greco-Roman pedestal. But during the struggle for liberation, when the colonized intellectual touches base again with his people, the artificial sentinel is smashed to smithereens. All the Mediterranean values, the triumph of the individual, of enlightenment and beauty, turns into pale, lifeless trinkets. All those discourses appear a jumble of dead words. Those values which seem to ennoble the soul prove worthless because they have nothing in common with the real-life struggle in which the people are engaged. So one of the things he points out here is that, if you're doing an authentic liberation struggle and you're fighting, at length, right? Even the intellectuals who might have been like, well, yeah, let's keep the water system running or whatever, right? Will fall back and be like, yeah, just burn the shit. Let's start over. And I mean, that's an important point. But again, maybe I'm sounding like a colonialist intellectual, but of course, Fanon's a colonialist intellectual too. So it's just colonialist intellectuals. Colonized intellectual just talking about each other. But yeah, that's what it is. That's what it is. It's there's a real human cost, okay, to shifting an economy. And one of the things of economies is that you have to formulate a better one. It's like if you are running an agricultural economy, right? And let's say the revolutionaries are the herders, right? The what are they called? Nomadic herders, yeah. The nomadic herders have another economy. Agricultural economies support more people than nomadic herders, right? But if the nomadic herders destroy the agricultural economy, right? All those people that relied on the agricultural economy now have nothing because they can't join the herding community because there's too many people. They outnumber them, and this is actually one of the reasons for a lot of wars in Africa before the white man came. It has to do with the fact that there's this economic clash. And so the colonial economy, the reason why it could support itself is because one of the things is that they import a lot of food. They import a lot of food. They import rice, they import meats, they import so on and so forth. And when you break that, when you destroy that connection to the outside world, when America says, yeah, we're not giving you any more chickens because you done killed the person we were negotiating with, right? And we don't want to negotiate with you. We don't recognize you. We blah, 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 blah. When France says that, when Germany says that, when even India says that, right? Your people who relied on the whole colony is structured around the delivery of food from the ports, right? And you might have this land that, has houses on it now. The arable land that has houses on it now. Now, what do? You destroy the houses and build a bunch of farms? Possibly. But do you have food in time for the people? It's a lot going on. It's a lot. And so now maybe possibly a lot of people died in this war for liberation. But if not, yeah, the reality is that there's this economic strain. And of course, you could say, look, I'll take it. I'll take it. That's better than being enslaved, obviously. It's better than being colonized. It's better than being enslaved, obviously. But you want to take this into account. And I don't know how many times I got to stress that. But it is what it is. Shout out to everybody in the chat, by the way. Make sure you guys put some more likes on this video. Appreciate everybody listening. And make yourself known. I only see 2 comments and 2 commentators, KW Don 7 and Bit of Medicine. So if you're listening to, just let me know. Salute to you. And of course, yeah. All right. So and look, I'm on page 11, so I was just planning on going to page 12. So, it is what it is, right? So, and first among them is individualism. The colonized intellectual learned from his master that the individual must assert himself. The colonialist bourgeoisie hammered into the colonized mind the notion of a society of individuals where each is locked in his subjectivity, where wealth lies in thought. But the colonized intellectual who is lucky enough to bunker down with the people through the liberation struggle will soon discover the falsity of this theory. Involvement in the organization of the struggle will already introduce him into a different vocabulary. Brother, sister, comrade are words outlawed by the colonialist bourgeoisie because in their thinking, my brother is my wallet and my comrade, my scheming. In a kind of auto da fe, the colonized intellectual witnesses the destruction of all of his idols, egoism, arrogant recrimination, and the idiotic childish need to have the last word, right? A lot of people have that need. This colonized intellectual, pulverized by the colonialist culture, will also discover the strength of the village assemblies, the power of the People's Commission, and the extraordinary productiveness of neighborhood and sections committee meetings. But again, you're going to see this, like, life is one of those things where your experiences are valued valued over like even the best options. It's kind of like I was actually reflecting on this the other day. I probably for the last decade I missed out on like all of my family gatherings, like all the barbecues and whatnot that they might have had. All the birthday celebrations, all the holiday celebrations. I missed out on all of that. And I was just reflecting on that, earlier that, like I missed out on a lot of kids growing up and all that kind of stuff. But here's the thing, like, I don't really care, but I can see how somebody who went to those, who attended those, like, let's say my brother might be like, yeah, those were the moments, like just because he was there, it's that much more impactful. He's like, yo, the power of a village assembly or the power of a cookout, of a backyard hangout with your family, is just unforgettable, and like I kind of get it. I did attend, like maybe like 20 years ago, and it was kind of fun, I guess. But the point is that, he's speaking because one of the things that Fanon, I think he did participate in the Algerian Revolution, so he's kind of documenting what he saw, like from a journalist perspective. And yeah, he's like, a lot of this egoism, a lot of this intellectual, a lot of this individualism, which I agree with right here, is done away with. You have brothers and sisters, you have people who are fighting, actively, fighting and agreeing with each other and putting their life on the line among each other in a village assembly. But of course, you don't want to overestimate that. Sure, that can work when you're in guerrilla warfare and you're still kind of relying on the colonial system to feed you. You're still kind of relying on like when you're doing guerrilla warfare, for instance, you're relying on the people to still feed you. You don't actually have settled land. You don't actually have agricultural. You don't actually have a separate economy. Now, when you rid the community at large of this colonizing force, now you have to go about with this settled land and all that kind of stuff. And that's where everything becomes complicated. The village assemblies, which might have been nice to sit down and chat and, drink over a fire or whatever, aren't really administrative units for realistic, because like realistically speaking, because you have to enact somebody's vision of liberation that's not really going to happen otherwise, right? So he says personal interests are now the collective interests because in reality, everyone will be discovered by the French legionnaires and consequently massacred, or else everyone will be saved. So he's like realistically speaking, yes, that's what I'm saying. Reality, there's no longer like, and that's the thing that's one of the drawbacks, if you will, but not really drawbacks. But here's the thing, I'm talking about nationalism, and I realize, even like let's say you're trying to establish a nation in Africa, you're going to have some opposition. And the reality is that not everybody's going to live. And it's possible that even I might be an early casualty or a late casualty, but a casualty no less. I don't know. And that's really one of the reasons why some people don't even want to do that is because realistically speaking, whatever opposition you're facing, and it might not be the French, it might be one of the African nations, whatever opposition you're facing, if you're going about violence, you can lose. You can lose, and things can keep going the way it was going beforehand, just without you. And that reminds me of the story. I brought it up in the other podcast maybe 2 years ago, two weeks ago. But there's a story about the guy, like it's one of the more devastating impacts of the story with the guy who stood up to the guy who was to the kid who was messing with his daughter. Right. The reality is that he dies for standing up, and it's like you could do the right thing and still get wiped out. You could do the right thing and still die, because what he did, what this guy does is, so I'll give the example for people to get the situation, is that he has a 13-year-old daughter. He doesn't want her dating this 17-year-old boy. The 17-year-old boy climbed into his window one day. He decides to move from where he's living to another place. The 17-year-old boy again climbs into his window, and so he escorts the boy out. They get into an argument. They both shoot each other, and the boy and the grown man is dead. Now, here's the thing. His daughter is too young, okay? In a sense, she's being violated, okay? In a sense, very technically, in legal terms, she's being raped, right? As a father, he's not supposed to just sit by and let this happen. He's not supposed to just sit in the other room and pretend to ignore it. He's supposed to stand up and do something. He does stand up. He does the right thing, and he's killed. You understand? That's like, he makes a moral decision to not just sit back, and he's killed for it. That's what decolonization is too. He's saying in reality, everyone will be like when we have these meetings, to nationalize or make a new African nation, I'm going to be just as much just as threatened by a bullet as you. You understand? We don't want to say French legionnaires. It could be somebody else. But so when I'm sitting down with you, even though you might say, hey, you know what? I mean, maybe some people, somebody out there, maybe somebody might say, well, Oni is probably would be valuable in this post-revolutionary situation, right? And all of us would be valuable. But the reality is that a lot of people don't make it. So here's the thing that happens in Africa, that a lot of Africa was decolonized, and a lot of the people who survived were exemplary leaders, but a lot of people who didn't survive probably would have been exemplary leaders too. You and that's one of the issues. So yeah, he says, look, everybody will be discovered by the French legionnaires and consequently massacred, because this is why people are not playing, or everyone will be saved. In such a context that every man for himself concept, the atheist form of salvation is prohibited. So that's he's just saying that, in this context of real revolution, of real decolonization, you can't be selfish. You can't because essentially you're up against something. You're relying on other people to survive. And you're already doing that. You're already relying on the colonists to survive in some sense. Now you're relying on the colonized, and you have to respect and say, you know what? Yeah, we're the same people. Like, we're on the same level. Like and like, we have to work together, and that, whichever one of us survives, we want to put something different. We want to handle our problems different, and it might not be all of us. You know what I mean? Like sometimes when you play a podcast, on this network, you could say, hey, dead man talking. No, I'm joking. Well, I shouldn't say that, but yeah, I shouldn't say I'm joking. But yeah, anyway, that's pretty much it. So that's up to page 12. I'll start off again on page 12 tomorrow, but that was nice. I think I might have done this a little longer than I thought I would. I thought it would just be 30 minutes because it's only 12 pages, but hey, it's a good book. So thank you so much, everybody, for listening. Of course, it was an honor. Leave some comments on what you thought about this book, how you liked it, how you didn't like it. But otherwise, Shem Hotep, Anku Ja, Saneb Neb, Amen, Ma'at, Dua Nature.